I haven't. I mean, I haven't signed anything.
Jim has to sign it. He's here
I
somewhere.
use that pen. Oh, mine's a signature. I didn't know they all signed with a blue pen, but I don't know where it came from.
In the kitchen.
These don't do very much. Do you have the blue pen? Okay. That mine doesn't do well on this paper.
Started and it kind of I got some lines, so.
I think I can get Jim. You want to take the pen with it and give the pen back to Greg? I never thought we'd find somebody at least to talk more than me and you. I think we did. Yeah.
Oh, I guarantee. I guarantee. Who was it you said I can borrow on too?
Okay.
Who was it you said I can borrow on too?
That's fine.
It was on a TV show somewhere. It'll come to me when I leave tonight. I used to like I was a big hee-haw fan growing up. Huh? I know. Mona Lester, she'd always ask for my number, for lunch numbers and stuff like that. BR 549. I still like to go and watch old reruns of the show. Lord, they couldn't do it today.
Oh, she working on his admin.
Oh, God. What reruns are hee-haw? They can't do that now. That's what they said.
Good evening, everybody. Let's call this June 12th, 2023 meeting of the Board of Education to order, and let's do the pledge.
Flag motion.
Y'all turn.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to exercise the privilege of the chair and move the agenda around a little bit. The state auditor is with us today, Mr. McCuskey. Welcome. Welcome to Mercer County. Glad to have you. And you're here to talk to us about purchasing cars, I believe.
Yes, I am, and answer any questions you guys might have, but
Have
we
the
have
floor.
one brief presentation first. So we created the P-card program a little bit before I got into the auditor's office, and it's an enormous success, and it does a lot for our schools. And so just this month, we should reach the $7 million returned back to our school boards just through this program. And this is money that obviously goes to the things that matter the most, right? We're all committed to the education of our children. There is nothing more important than making sure our kids have great public schools. And $7 million is not nothing. And you guys have a really, really exceptional employee here, a woman named Julian Smith, who has, and so just from our office, we have a little something for you. But I want to just say thank you, not just for my office, but for all the kids that go to school in this campus, because you set an example for the whole state. And you guys are now at almost $700,000 returned just to this school board. And that matters. I mean, as we all know, we live in small communities and budgets are tight, and having people that truly care about the kids in their community and absolutely represent their constituents the way we wanted to present you with what we call the Leona Ketz Award. And so you are the third ever recipient of this, and it's a really big deal in our office. So you shouldn't be humble about this. And we're really, really thankful to you and hopeful that your leadership and your vision is going to push this program further and make sure that what you've done now gets bigger and better, and we're able to make this program a bigger success than it already is. But thank you. And I'm going to give you a hug. I didn't have a good cursive teacher, so you might not be able to.
Maybe do you want to get a picture, you need to turn for that? Sure, yeah.
Do you want to get the,
Don't worry about that. They didn't know she did all the work.
yeah, get the Julia. I know.
You can use your P card to pay your fees.
And then we'll get everyone.
You can't stand up there, you're already the tallest one.
Here, Leslie, get over here. Good.
You should be noted that she's the reason.
Good.
Look, there's 3 cameras.
Always look at the redhead.
I gotta see back there.
Over here. Good ass.
If you don't mind. Get back, sorry. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, very good. Thank you.
Now you have to stand up here and answer questions.
Thank you, no, you too, thank you, thank you. Thanks, sir, thank you, thank you.
That's what we're talking about.
Oh, actually, so the floor is a little bit yours. So, you know, this program can be as much as you need it to be. And so from our office's standpoint, the rebate's obviously wildly important, right? And getting money back in our school systems, especially as budgets are not going up, is really important to me personally. But the system itself is also really important for 2 other huge reasons. One, so we're in charge of monitoring for fraud for all 55 county school boards, all 55 counties, all 257 cities, all of the economic development corporations, all the public service districts, you name it. So we have an enormous amount of entities that we have to monitor for fraud. And the easiest way to steal is by check. The hardest way to steal is by credit card. And the reason that is we've built a bunch of really sophisticated systems that enable us to comb through lots of purchasing data quickly, but it only works when the data is coming to us from our credit card vendors, right? When you write a check, you're really 4 weeks away from knowing whether that check was right or wrong. On a credit card, I know the instant the transaction happens, where it happened, what was bought, who used it, where it was, when it happened, right? And so it's sort of counterintuitive. Most people think that credit cards are much easier to steal money with. They're actually much, much harder. And so the more things that we can start to use our P cards for, the easier it is for us on our audits at the end of the day. It generates a ton more revenue, and it makes you way more protected by us and our fraud monitoring software. And every transaction has $1 million worth of insurance, which means when somebody steals a check, you may not ever get that money back. You know, we just hit the $5.5 million mark of restitution on fraud that we prosecuted just in the last 5 years. Right? We have 52 felony convictions in the last 4 years. Right? So it's happening, is the point. And most of the people that steal, that money's gone. But if you use a card, Visa will pay you back, which, you know, that's just like a regular credit card. So however we can help you guys buy more and bigger things with these cards, the better off you guys are going to be and the better we are. So we can work with any vendor that tells you you can't use a card, right? We've actually had county school boards use my buses. They work great for gas, they work awesome for food, all the commodities that you're buying, gasoline, tires, oil, you name it, yes.
I have several business friends
Yes.
that use for points.
Yep.
They'll pay their utilities and other bills within their business with an American Express card.
Yep.
And then one time a month, they write that check. So how can we, you said you look forward to us growing. How do we grow that program? Can we, I mean, AEP and some of these others, can we
Yeah.
pay that bill with the P card?
Absolutely,
And
so
then
we've started doing that. So AEP, when we started, I had, I think, 3,200 individual AEP bills I had to pay. We pay all the bills for the whole state too, and so every building that the state has its own power bill, right? And so we made them aggregate the bill, they sent us one bill, we pay once a month, one card. I'll bet you guys have the same deal, I mean, I couldn't imagine you guys probably have 25 facilities apiece, right?
we're getting the head shake.
Yeah, and so we worked with AEP to do that, it saves us, you know,
Are we
50
paying
hours a month.
with the P card? So what other type things could
So,
we grow?
so all the
to?
principals can have it, right? So if you give it to, every teacher has a $300 to $600 budget. They can, P cards are perfect for that because they can limit what you can buy, right? You can put any controls you want on them that you can imagine. Principals all have giant budgets too. So food, gas, any commodity you're buying is perfect. And truthfully, for weird things, when kids go on travel for you know, for a game, you know, when you have to go, you know, to play CWs or whatever it is in Charleston, all the kids have to eat. Like, there's a million reasons why that makes sense, because then you're not handling $20 bills to every kid. The coach doesn't have to keep a wad of cash. There's way less paperwork. The paperwork ends up getting done by this team, but you have a really good treasurer, and my gut tells me that you understand how to make this faster. It's one bit of more work that leads to a whole lot of less work down the line.
So do you see other, what county school system has gone the farthest with this?
Oh, man.
And what are they doing?
So you guys spend the most. But on the card. You know, interestingly enough, McDowell County is really, really good at this. McDowell County is a real sophisticated, and it's, Leona was a McDowell County, she was the assistant treasurer there, the person the award's named after. But to be fair, it really needs to be up to her, right? I mean, it's her job, and so it's our job to make her job easier. We have a whole team of people who work with school boards to implement all of this stuff. And the bank, we use US banks now, you know, that it changes every few years because we always bid it out. But they have a whole team of people that can help you with all the coding and however you want it reported back to you. And anytime a vendor says no, you know, we change the code, and now it is the preferred method of payment for all governments in the state of West Virginia, which means if you want to do business with you, technically you have to take a fee. They're not actually allowed to say no. Yeah, and for us, we do almost $1 billion a year on the state fee code. And we're at almost $50 million back from the general revenue just since I started. I mean, that's not nothing. As my mom would have said, $1 million here and $1 million there, pretty soon we're talking about some real money, right? And it just makes, from the audit side, from our relationship with the treasurers, anytime the transactions can be digital, it makes our life so much easier. And at the end of the day, when you're doing your reconciliations and your finance reports for your auditors, it all's preloaded.
It absolutely is. I think Rosemary, for example, this year, there were 6 of us that talked, well, it happened several times before I got involved, just trying to get her team to be able to travel to skills competitions, having money for their students to be able to eat and have gas while they travel and things like that. If we had a P card, it would have been so much easier. We ended up buying Visa cards, and a teacher had to be responsible for those.
That's actually the worst possible solution.
Well,
So,
it is, but it was a per diem,
But it
and
was
that's
your
the only,
solution, right? I
it
mean,
was better than
yeah.
handing out cash, in our
Correct.
opinion, because someone did not want thousands of dollars of cash, and so, but, you can ask Rosemary, I said, if we can get P cards in your hands, this will be so much easier. Derek Pelcher is the perfect example. Robotics, they actually, there was a fraudulent transaction on my P card this year. Someone tried to run it through, and I thought we had reached our limit. Called Linda, who was on vacation, helped me out immediately. No, actually somebody had stolen my card, tried to run it through, and they caught it and flagged it, and that was halted. So Derek has a P card. He's used it many times with our permission for school, trip to Carowinds. He's been able to buy robotics, work with Dr. Atkins on that, and he will say, it has been so much easier than us having, we still issue POs, we still get the purchase approved, but it it is so much easier on the back end. And our schools, if you've been involved in athletics, you've been involved in field trips, those secretaries never know how much they're going to, how many kids are gonna go until that morning. They're calling me, can you sign this check, can you do this? The principals have to rush in to get a check before they can leave. If they had a P card, the flexibility is there, we still do a purchase order, but if 2 kids don't show up, they don't have to pay without, there is just, especially athletics, I will say, and especially McPeck, but the
Well, it's
principals.
athletics and social services too. Part of this that is sort of unseen is,
Oh, yes.
you know, we live in a world where there's some parents who are less into their children's well-being than others. And our schools have sort of stepped up as an intermediary for child welfare. And, you know, when a kid shows up to school and they're dirty, it's starving.
Yes.
So, a grown-up needs to help them, and nobody wants that to not happen, and if you have to go get a check and run through everything, principal ends up just using their own money. And that's almost never the right idea. And this just gives people the flexibility to be able to do the right thing in real time, which is meaningful.
So people know, what can we get back when we spend money? How is there a rebate back?
We just write you a check.
Okay, it's a percentage of what we're spending?
Yeah, it is, you get, I think, 95% of the total rebate, so 5% of it we use to run the program. It might actually be 100% now. It's either almost nothing or it's nothing. And so the rebate that comes through the card is processed by my office and we send it back to you. Do we send you a check or do you get an EFT? Okay, so
I
you
was
get
gonna say, I hope you send it digitally.
Yeah, I'm not.
Oh, good point.
Well, and you know, it's funny, we don't really write checks anymore. And I did say that, thank you for correcting me. It is almost completely consumed by the local government, which is the person who's supposed to have it in the first place.
Through Oasis.
It's a great.
Through Oasis, that's right.
It's a great program. Appreciate it.
We appreciate you guys, and we'll be down here next year for the big game.
Good. Thanks for recognizing Jillian, that was nice. We appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you, and you know, we live in a world where there's a whole lot of people that do a lot of good that nobody knows about. And it's good for everyone to see that there are people that care and do the right thing every time. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you guys, it's good to see you.
Yeah, so come back anytime.
Going home.
Promise we will. As safe as you can be going 90.
Safe as Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So the next wonderful thing we get to do, Cass, I'm gonna say the last name wrong, so somebody tell me before I say it.
Basile.
Basile. All right. Chastity Basile, being recognized for 15 years of dedicated services as the PTO president of Glenwood School. We would like her to come up and be recognized.
I think Ernie's gonna read.
Yeah, Ernie, please.
Thank you. Okay, it is our pleasure to recognize Chastity Basile for 15 years of dedicated service as the PTO president of Glenwood School. Chastity is a real go-getter and is always looking for ways to help the students excel in Glenwood School to become a better learning institution. She is not only blessed to be a mom to her own 3 children, but shares her love and encouragement with all of the students and staff at Glenwood School. Glenwood is truly a family-oriented school. Thank you for everything, Chastity. Once a wildcat, always a wildcat. Chastity Basile.
So, you know, PTOs matter so much to our schools. You know, we pretend we can operate without them, but we really can't. We need you to do all the things that you do to make things so much better for us and for our students, which is why we're all here, right?
Right.
So we're going to give you a little bit of a thank you in the form of a certificate, and we like to give these little coins. They're just the presidential dollar coins. But this one's John F. Kennedy. My fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Well, you did that for your county, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
if I could just take a minute, none of this would even be possible if it weren't for every one of them standing back there. My kids, which are the whole reason I was here, my principal, and my core group of mamas that worked right beside of me.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you so very much.
Thank you.
We get to take a picture, mamas, come
Come on
on.
up here.
Hey, Chastity.
Chastity can tell you a thing or two about these.
I was just gonna say, if you had a P card, how much better would you
Did I
like
not
it?
ask Candace what I just said? I said, how come when I was in charge we didn't have a kid?
I knew it.
Because Leslie hates me. Oh, no, the other one.
Oh. Oh, I was gonna say, no, I don't.
Tear that check up. I need a different one.
You can't order from there, they don't take POs.
Me, 3, 2, 1. Let me get one more, hold on.
Thank you.
Only people that do it know how hard it is. Because it is one of the most stressful, difficult, complicated, unrewarding, rewarding kind of thing you can do. All right. So we are ready for the superintendent's, comments.
Yes, members of the board, I just wanted to put a few items out for you guys. But just on Monday, June 19th is Juneteenth, the Governor Justice created a state holiday. You got West Virginia Day, Tuesday, June 20th. Also, Communities in Schools Summary. Scholas put together some information. We have that on discussion later, so I just put it together for you if you have any questions for Jenny. Also, the WBASA conference at Glade Springs, we have several members of our staff will attend that at Glade Springs, so there's an agenda on there for you to look at. Also, the Jason Learning National Conference, July 6th and 7th in Leesburg, Virginia. We've got a large group going over there to hopefully come back and then we're a designated STEM district. And then facts and questions related to the Third Grade Success Act funding for the district, House Bill 3055. You have information on there to look through. And the iReady information that Dr. Atkins put together, maybe the proposal and some information on where we did a pilot program with the iReady. There's some information on there for you. The codable information, Title I carryover from Dr. Atkins. And also a draft robotics policy that Dr. Atkins and Mr. Belcher is here to answer any questions, along with Kelly Stanley and Ashley Smith put together that robotics policy just for a draft that you can look at. So I want to give you that information, sir.
All right, thank you. We'll hit the agenda then. I've got approval of the minutes for May 16, May 22nd, May 24th, 2023. Is there a motion for approval? Is there a second? Questions, comments, discussion? There appearing to be none, then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. Policy 2322, West Virginia Support and Accountability. I guess we'll talk about that a little bit later in the meeting. Isn't that how we usually do it? Toward the end? Okay. All right. Regarding unfinished business, board memo number 316 is second reading of policy E07, the Mercer County Safety Committee. It's being changed to update and clarify language. One comment was received.
You got a new memo on there that no comments were received, so correction on that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No comments were received. Superintendent recommends approval. Is there a motion for approval? Is there a second? Motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion? Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. Board Amendment number 317 is policy E12, buildings and ground maintenance. This is second reading. No comments were received. Superintendent recommends approval. Is there a motion for approval? Is there a second? Motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion? Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. Board Amendment number 318 is policy I-25. This is second reading of the Comprehensive School Counseling Program. No comments were received. Superintendent recommends approval. Is there a motion for approval? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion?
Question on this.
Go right ahead.
I think I remember that in this past legislative session, they made some changes to jobs and responsibilities for our counselors. Is that why this has changed?
Yes, the last two legislative sessions, changes have occurred, and we're.
Okay, so this, we're up to speed with policy through this past legislative session. That's all I have.
All right. Anything else? Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. The motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. I'll now go through the consent agenda, and at the end, if anybody has any questions about any of these memos, we'll discuss them then. Board memo number 356 is bid number 921, vending snacks and drinks renewal 2. This is received from Quick Cafe, Pepsi, and Mountain Vending, the pre-approved product delivery. The commission will remain the same at 35%, but costs will increase because of the costs increase to them, apparently. Commissions paid directly to the school. Superintendent recommends approval of bid 921, vending and snacks and drinks renewal 2 to Pepsi, Mountain Vending, and Quick Cafe for July 1, 23 to June 30, 24. Board amendment number 357 is, am I right here? No. I got them out of order. Am I right? 357?
Yeah, you're right.
All right. 357 is paving, additional paving. We approved at our May 22nd board meeting paving at 6 locations. Total cost was $340,000. Further inspection needs, central office parking needs repaved for an additional cost of $34,402. Superintendent recommends the additional paving to central office, at central office to AAA paving for $34,402. Board amendment number 358 is bid number 938, refrigerated maintenance renewal. Southern Air has a bid 938 for repairs and annual preventative maintenance. This is for the 23-24 school year. Renewal pricing of $89.25 an hour, which is a $4.25 or $4.25 increase. Superintendent recommends approval of that bid. Board amendment number 359 is contracted services for physical therapy services. Director of Special Ed has requested that we renew Dr. Renee Green's physical therapy contract for the period of July 1st, 23 to June 30, 24. Her rate for individual evaluation is $150 an hour. Written reports are $80 an hour for teacher consulting and training, $80 an hour for attending meetings, and $80 an hour for physical therapy sessions. Superintendent recommends approval of the renewed agreement with Dr. Green. Board amendment number 360 is integrated pest management. This is pest management services with Orkin LLC. They are part of a cooperative pricing agreement, and we received the bid without competitive bidding because of the cooperative pricing. Updated pricing was trained in 23-24, remains the same. It's $2,031 per month. Superintendent recommends approval of the contract with Orkin for August 1-23, July 31-24. Board amendment number 361 is RFP 309 renewal number 2, and this is for long distance and local phone for Frontier Communications. There were no increases. The expenses for 21-22 were $170,474.06. Superintendent recommends approval of the renewal 2 to Frontier Communications for that amount. Board amendment number 362 is athletic field maintenance renewal number 1. Aspen Corporation is involved in this one. The price remains the same at $76,675 and is effective from June 1-23 to May 31-24. Superintendent recommends approval of the renewal to Aspen Corporation. Board amendment number 363 is roof replacement and coating at Athens Elementary. The roof needs replaced. We secured bids through the cooperative for replacement. This is a 20-year manufacturer warranty. The price is $497,387.70, which includes the bonds. Superintendent recommends approval to Tecta America Carolinas LLC in that amount. The capital improvements fund will be utilized for the project. Board amendment number 364 is roof replacement here at Mercer County Tech. Building B needs replacement and recoating. Once again, we use the cooperative for the bid. It's a 20-year manufacturer's warranty. The price is $940,890.94, which includes the bond. Superintendent recommends approval of roof replacement to Tecta America Carolinas LLC in that amount. Capital improvement funds utilized for that project. I think that's it for the consent agenda. Questions about the consent agenda?
On those, oh, go ahead.
That's all right, ladies first.
On those roofing projects, is that like the whole roof at Athens and McTech both? What's the time frame for those getting done, or do we know?
He hasn't really told me, he just said, generally they don't get a time frame until.
We have something, yeah.
He has said the materials are readily available for both, he would just have to see about getting approved to me.
Is that something that can be done when school's in session, or does it need to be?
We did it at Silver Springs this year.
Okay,
That's
while
not
school was in,
ideal, but
yeah, I was
we'd
gonna
like
say,
to do it.
you'd like to do it in the summer.
And we
if you can.
definitely want to do it at Athens first during all the construction.
Yeah, so it's possible it could possibly be done this summer, maybe, hopefully, okay.
Mr. Atkins, does that roof have stone on it, or is it just a stone? Ballast?
They pretty much do that.
This is not the education wing. This is just this big wing.
Here,
Yeah, it's over here where she's got equipment.
Yes.
all over where like the outside programs
Yes.
are? Okay.
Yes. We looked at it, he drew it out on that. The seminar center's been redone.
What does this do to our capital improvements fund, Leslie? What does it do to our capital improvement? I'm sorry.
No, we still have a couple million,
Okay.
2 million after this.
It dings it, but we've still got money.
Yeah, it's still a lot.
Okay.
It's still hard work. And I will say that, I will verify that. I did ask Dawn to make sure, and she gave me a Google map, but maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it is that wing. I know the seminar center was just done last year.
Okay. It said B wing, so.
I would think it'd be this one over here. I was in there earlier in the spring with Rosemary, and we've got expensive pieces of equipment in there, and they've got buckets.
Well, I know that it is this one. I know that it is all the way down to the end for this shop.
For $970,000, I bet it's both. That's a lot for just this. Considering what they bid for Athens and comparing them,
Yeah,
I'll bet it's both.
It could be.
Okay, it's all right.
I may be wrong.
Whatever it is, it is. I mean, that's the bid through the cooperative.
She did
so.
calculate the square footage too, so.
Okay, we're good. Anything else on the
Whole thing.
consent?
No, just said the whole thing.
Whole thing. There we go.
Thank you, sir.
That's good. A lot of moving parts stuff. It's amazing we don't, I certainly get confused a lot, so. Anything else from anybody on the consent agenda? Then we have I need a motion on the consent agenda. So moved. Is there a second?
second.
There's a second. Anything else? Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. All right. Additional business. Board Amendment number 365 is a first reading of policy J18, expected behavior in safe and supportive schools. Mr. Toman.
President Pruitt, I wanted to let you know that I'm tickled to death that we have this brought to you today for the first reading. We had several issues with possession, and I think this will clear up that if we have somebody even with possession, we'll be able to do some things and possibly get them out of the system. So there's a lot of changes on here that I think that we needed to update, and I think that's the biggest thing right off the top of my head on J18. You guys deal with a lot of tough issues with kids and expulsions, and I think this will help clean up that anybody that has any illegal drugs or substance in our system, that we will not have them on our property.
Distribution is not required, it's just simple possession is enough to
Yes.
expel.
That's
basically.
exactly right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, we've been battling that
Yeah.
the last year, so get the word out and maybe it'll help.
Anything else, Mr. Browning? I think that's the biggest thing. So we had Mr. Horn, lawyer that does our expulsions, that went through and gave us some good recommendations, looked at other policies. So this is the first reading. We'll have that ready when the school starts. So get the information out also, like you said.
Any thoughts from board members at this point?
Any help we can get.
Is there still, there's supposed to be, a change in the legal system as well for, about vapes too, right, July 1?
I believe
About,
so, that.
wasn't there,
Yes, legislature passed legislation.
But the
this
selling of it,
session
possession and
that
buying.
It becomes illegal to sell them in the state of West Virginia, those, omega-8s and so forth and so forth, so that
Do
should
you-
help.
that'll help
Do you remember if it's
reinforce
just
this, right?
sell or sell and possess?
But the law has outlawed the selling of them, which is gonna
Okay.
take them out of the marketplace.
So you can get them somewhere else and bring them home, but you can't buy them here.
Right.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
then we're covered with as far as possession, bringing it to school. I mean, they're underage regardless.
Exactly, exactly.
Good. All right. Gives us some flexibility. That's what we want, some flexibility. Anything else on that one? We'll see that one again after it goes out.
Mr. Bruce, I'm gonna clarify back to your question. I can't, I know the law outlaws the selling of them instead of possession. I'm not sure of the
Possession.
Yeah. Just to clarify.
But it's illegal to possess if you're underage.
Anyway.
Exactly. The law's already in place.
Never
Under
be
18.
able to do something if it's a school.
Right. Board Amendment number 366 is Career Connection Business Partners. This is the 23-24 list. These are local businesses that occasionally, and county businesses out of county that we use work-based learning experiences. Board approval is required for insurance purposes. Superintendent recommends approval. Is there a motion for approval? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion? Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. Board Amendment number 367 is something we see just about every year, actually every year. And this is the Melrose Presbyterian Church parking lot lease agreement for the purposes of the parking lot at Melrose Elementary School. The term is August 1, 23 through June 30 of 24. Consideration is that we will maintain the parking lot, and that's about as generous as you can get. Superintendent recommends approval. Is there a motion for approval? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion?
Tom, what kind of maintenance? We plow, we snow plow, get it treated, and then when needed, we'll pay them, which will probably be next year.
But it's been a long time since we did pave it.
Yeah, we looked at it this year, we considered it, but we think that one more year is good.
It's always pot filler.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor, none opposed.
Could I,
Go right ahead.
there, do we, Tom, Mr. Atkins, Tom, do we, do any sealing on our asphalt anywhere in the county?
Do we seal it ourselves?
Or do we
Do we provide that?
provide sealing?
When they do, repave or, fix, they seal it on top of that area.
But as far as.
But like every few years,
It's something we might think about, Mike.
to prolong,
It prolongs the life.
It might not hurt to compare doing that periodically and what it does to paving costs down the road. That's not a bad idea, really. Just to compare and see, it may turn out that we don't really come out that far ahead when we balance it all, and it might be that we do.
Well, especially when you start to get just the first little bit of cracks, if you get in there with tar and then cover it with a sealer, you may get 10 more years of life out of it. If you've got a good base in it. Whereas if you don't, it's gonna fall off easy in 2 or 3 years.
you'd have to repaint like this burn along.
Well, you have to, yes, but if you remember, we have to do that anyway, just wear and tear on the paint.
That's something we need to look into. Good idea. Board Amendment number 368 is proximity learning for alternative school instruction grades 9 through 12. We obtained a quote from Proximity Learning to reserve 40 seats for Mercer County students for the purposes of core instruction in English language arts, math, science, and social studies, as well as 2 electives. They will be live 4 days a week, and they will have an opportunity on Wednesdays for open office hours to provide one-on-one instruction, small group instruction, or conduct meetings with Mercer County staff and parents. We're doing this in conjunction with Fayette County as a partner to reduce the costs of the initiative, and fees will be billed through the SESC. The cost appears to be $72,000 to us. The superintendent recommends approval. Is there a motion for approval?
So,
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All right. Questions, comments, or discussion?
this in lieu of the in-person alternative?
At the high school level, yes.
So we would not have that program anymore in person?
Not for high school level. We
Just
wouldn't
middle
have an
school
in-person program
and
for middle school.
elementary? Do we have it for elementary still? Didn't we have it at Mountain Valley at
Just
one
the
point?
K2, yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I have some concerns about students in that predicament participating in a home-based instruction. Does anybody shares that concern? I don't.
Well, when
I just-
Todd first told me about it, I said, I'll tell you right now, I'm voting against it. I mean, these kids are in, at risk, in trouble already, and, so, what little bit I knew about it, and then he educated me, and then I went to check it out. We've got 30, 40 kids in the program, and any given day, we've got 7 to 10 kids, maybe.
If we're lucky.
Maybe.
They're not
So
coming
what are the
anyway.
other 20 doing? That's where I'm turned off, but other people can hear me. I get on my soapbox with this one too. Somewhere in the system, somebody needs to be held accountable. It can't be the teacher because they're there doing it. The student has some issues, the parents, the legal system, I don't know, but there needs to be tougher teeth in these programs. And to have these kids sitting at home, okay, what happens with attendance? They're supposed to be in class 4 times, 4 hours, how many hours it is for 3 days a week. 4 live classes, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Who do you call when they're not there?
Actually,
I mean, can truancy get more involved than the court system
yes, and
gets
this
more
is gonna,
involved?
and this is gonna give us more concrete data for truancy to get involved with, because it's actually gonna show when they log in to the
Yeah.
site and participate in the course. So there's gonna be probably an increase in monitoring of student participation.
But don't we have data now when they're not physically present?
We do, but it's teacher data, and oftentimes they'll challenge that, so when I was there, you just didn't mark, that the teacher's record's incorrect, and so
Okay.
forth. So that's a piece of it, but also, the rest of the story is this is going to increase, I'm a real firm believer that people live up to expectations. This is gonna increase the quality of the instruction. We're gonna have an English teacher teaching English. We're gonna have a math teacher teaching math. We're gonna have a social studies teacher teaching social studies. A science teacher teaching science. What we have now is a substitute teacher and a special ed teacher that's also certified in social studies that's delivering instruction at the alternative center. So, yeah, I think we're gonna see an increase to some degree in expectations for student success and student achievement, and I think that's gonna be a positive.
I just don't know how much students in alternative are motivated to seek true education. I don't know.
It's one of the reasons why we have to really dig down hard on alternatives for those kids and find other ways to get them through our system, get them an education that they can use in the world.
Right.
And whatever that is, we need to figure it out. But what's happened to me over time, and I've always believed this, but students, particularly in high school, and parents do have a responsibility for this education. It's not just on the public schools. And to just say it's just on the public schools misses the whole point of this. It's that old saw, you can lead a horse to water, and you can encourage that horse to drink, but if that horse don't want to drink, it's not going to drink. And you can have it by that pond, it's not going to drink. At some point, children and their parents have to understand that part of this is on them to do their part. Part of this is on them to show up and to listen and to learn. And if they don't want to do this, to ask, what's the option that I have? What are other opportunities that I can engage in to avoid this process? Because this process ain't going to work for me. Now, it is our responsibility, and you all have heard this from me before, to figure out much before the 9th grade, see those kids, intercede with them, and get them convinced before they get to high school that we do have options for them that will work for them. That is on us. And when we miss that part, we fail. But I graduated with 55 people, and every single one of those in a really poor community went on to do something with their lives, from military to business people to professionals, every single one of them. And the main reason was not that we were just such an exceptional group of kids. It was because everybody's parents were pounding on them. You're going to go to school and you're going to get an education, and I don't want to hear it. And even the troubled ones, even the ones that cause trouble, their parents whacked them and said, go to school. You're graduating. You don't have a choice. We are not going to play this game. So part of our problem is the absence of that 1/3 of that triangle, and that's, and far too often, the parents here. We know that. We see it.
Well, that's kind of what, I hear what you're saying. And I don't mean this for everyone, because anytime you make a blanket statement, well, blanket statements are wrong when we're talking about behaviors of people, period. But in many cases, the parents have already failed in these situations. Otherwise, they would not be in this. But I'll be honest with you, I have issue because in my heart, I feel like that these kids may be the kids that most need personal interaction with the teacher. And that's just the way I feel about it. This program, I think, on face value is great, but the sheer fact that they're not having to get up and go somewhere or do something is what I have an issue with. I think that's a bad, maybe that's the way of the world today.
I don't disagree with you, but they're not doing it now.
Well, then maybe
We're
we need to
offering it,
fix
they're
what,
not coming.
maybe we need to fix what we're doing now.
Ashley, does Proximity have any experience with alternative schools?
Fayette County actually used this model this year, just kind of for a pilot. And what I will say is their virtual learning coordinator is also their attendance director. So she's very proactive with the data and following up with the court system, just like the back office are. We're constantly in contact with probation officers and so on and so forth.
But are they doing anything?
They are. I don't know as far as credits, how many were obtained. They did use it for their middle school also. They're actually upping their number of seats from 30 to 60. I'll be honest with you, I can't see them doubling their seats if they weren't successful with it. But I don't know. I haven't, actually, Mr. Lester with Proximity has actually had the conversation with him.
Well, and I want to share another response to some of the points. I mentioned earlier about having a teacher that is certified in these content-specific areas. I'd go back to, I think there's real merit in that, and the reason I say that, and when we mention having daily interaction, they're going to have daily interaction. The teacher is there. It's a Teams meeting. The teacher's there. You know, they're seeing a real person. They're interacting with a real person on a daily basis. Now, if you visit our current alternative school, they're given a list of assignments on the computer, and they sit on the computer and work all day. And unless they call a teacher over, they don't get a lot of daily support from a teacher. So this is actually more one-on-one with the teacher than what we're doing now.
And that just is saying that we're doing it wrong now, so it's gonna mean that, I don't know that that is
But
a
again,
very.
when you look at what the number of areas the teachers are trying to cover, again, we have a 5202 sub.
Yeah, right,
And we have a certified teacher in social studies.
cause we have trouble keeping people in that position.
Yes.
And
I
there's a
mean,
reason why we have
I
trouble
just
keeping
think, I mean, in the past, I know that we had a teacher who did the secondary who was popular with some and not with others, and they're not even in this county anymore, but I visited the classroom several times when that teacher was here, and they really focused on, like, life skills for these kids and things, not just math and English and social, which obviously is all important.
Which
But-
is a need
Yes,
in those cases.
they don't have that at home.
So why don't we
Clearly.
use that Wednesday to do
Those
that?
are the Wednesday activities.
That is the plan, to do
Those are the
that, and
Wednesday
also,
activities.
use the high school counselors to come in and do some group counseling, some individual counseling as well.
Is there a day that they actually show up somewhere?
Ms. Aleph has it will be a Wednesday. I'm not sure if she's
We
looking
talked
at a
about it.
set Wednesday each month.
Right, we talked about at least once a month, possibly twice, depending on the situation. But at
They
least
would
a minimum
physically
once a
come
month.
in.
So these kids from all over the county, what are we gonna do? Tell them to,
They'll ride the buses into their home school,
And I
and
think-
just as
And come
the
here.
vocational buses to here, which is what we've been doing as far as
That's my
transporting
plan.
Well, I mean, one way to look at this is we seem to all agree what we're doing now is not working, so we're trying something different. This is only for 1 year, it's not forever, so my view is if what we're doing is not working, then perhaps we need to try something else and see if it does work, and it may. And again, I think that, you know, we're bound by law to get credits to these kids. If they don't get them, they don't graduate. Is that not correct? Am I missing something there? So if they're not showing up, they're not getting the credits, they're not graduating.
But if they're not showing up, and we're talking about law, then why aren't they being them or their parents, whoever, being prosecuted?
I
mean,
can
that's
tell
law
you that we
too.
have some that are court ordered that don't come. And by the time the probation officer gets involved and they get back for a court date, and, you know, it's just it's a continuous, you know, 30 days out here and 30 days out there, and pretty soon the year's almost over. But we've dealt with that a lot, because I have several that are
Does it
court
carry
ordered.
over, Rosemary, to the next year? Or, I mean, if you've got a kid in that situation, does it carry over to the next year? Do they start off in trouble?
And we've started to back in alternative, you know, we do a review at the end of the year, and if they're not where they need to be, but when Todd says that 7 if we're lucky, I mean, he's telling me the truth, we may carry 30 on the roll for our roster, but an average of 6 is what we get, and it's not consistent, it's not even the same 6.
Right, it's not the same six.
No, they just, when they feel like getting up and coming, they come, if not, they don't, but like I said, we've got some that are court ordered, and they don't come, and it's just.
And I'm sure we discussed their options with them, of the options pathway, for example, other opportunities that they could have
Yes.
to get out, and then they still don't come.
And I think also for you guys to be aware of, and I could probably get some data together, but the amount of incidents on the buses from them traveling in here, that we have issues with the other kids that have to deal with, from the behaviors, from what Mrs. Mitchell has to deal with, from her job of being the tech director and trying to move forward with our comprehensive high school with data, that she has to deal with behaviors right there, from the fears of some of the issues that happen through these kids. I think that's something to look at, but I think that's what we put together. We thought this was the best approach with Mr. Browning, with Dr. Vaughn, with Mrs. Mitchell, to put together that we thought this was best for the system. So again, that's up to you all.
Is the reason because, what's the core reason for moving? Is it because the old system's not working? Is it because we don't want to deal with those kids in person? What's the core reason that started it? Or were we just approached to do it?
I think we approached it to look at what's best for kids, and then again, who holds the system accountable. We go back to the parents. I think we're looking at safety. I think there's several factors that we looked at to say this is what we think is the best opportunity at this time.
And proximity made the offer.
Right.
They said, we can do this for you guys if you're interested. And again, if what you're doing is failing, continuing to do it doesn't benefit anybody.
Right, and I think that's a really, when we look back on what evolved as far as the conversation and how we got to this point today, it probably did start with it coming out that proximity said they could do it. And that gave us real reason to kind of look at what we were doing and our lack of success, and thinking possibly we can do something better than what we're doing now. You know, because I mean, the way we've been doing it, I mean, we've been doing it this way since 1996. Because the program was maybe 95, but the program was in place when I came back to Blisswood High School in 97.
Oh, it's been that long that there's been an alternative program?
Yes, and we've been doing it the same way since we've changed location, and we've got, and it simply has evolved to where, you know, when we first started, we had some, you know, pretty good success.
We also
But-
have it at night.
Yes, we did it at night, and then we transitioned to the day program. We thought about that. Maybe we should go back to a night program. You know, maybe that would be the answer.
Well, and there was that window where we had that really aggressive truancy program that Judge Applehouse really pushed, where the court system was really aggressive, and it was telling parents, you better have them there, or
you're gonna be in trouble.
you're gonna be in front of me, and we're gonna deal with you. And that system went away. So that's kind of.
Exactly, and I feel like, I've lived through these. Mr. Browning and I lived through some of them together, and I know the bus issues, I know the night issues, especially when they're on site and you've got athletic events. I mean, that's a whole hornet's nest. But I'm gonna be, honestly, this, when I saw this and when we talked about it, in my heart, I'm really more emotional about this than anything I've done since I've been on this board, because I don't know, just, if it works, maybe if we try it a year and it works, but I'd really like to revisit it if we do vote.
Well, we have to renew it next year, so we'll be revisiting it, yeah.
And it's not the time to stop looking for solutions, I guess.
Don't disagree.
What my fear is, look, I don't know how successful, they think they're gonna be. But if you've got 3 or 4 kids, and I'm primarily, I'm high school, that, we may drop the ball on, it bothers me. That's kind of why I ran for this office, is about the kids. And maybe if this is the solution, I tell you what though, really for me, I'd like to see data both ways. If we vote yes for this, then I'd like to see some data next year that shows me it's successful. And if not, then we better find another solution, because I remember, the Mountaineer, man, some of the kids that we sent up there, Mr. Atkins, you remember? I'm emotional right now, because that's what I was in education for, is to see kids succeed. And that program, the kids that were motivated enough to do that, a lot of them really succeeded, did they not?
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's tons of success stories.
Yeah.
From the time each year goes to now, I've seen the decline of the attendance, behaviors that are there, the overall success of that program. So I mean, I know I'm not voting on it, I'm just the old maintenance director right now, but
I value your opinion though.
Sure. I think that the kids that are going to be successful here will be successful virtually right now,
Okay.
because otherwise you're not really, it's about the same thing right now. And I think Todd's trying to say it very diplomatically.
Yep.
We're not getting a whole lot out of what we have right now.
What kind of monitoring on a daily basis, when they start coming back in late August, and these kids they come in and get their devices, and then we send them home with an instruction sheet, what type of monitoring do we have, and how long are we gonna wait till these kids just don't go online for a week? How long do we wait, and then what do we do?
These teachers will be in daily contact with our personnel. These proximity teachers will be contacting, Ashley on a daily basis, and then she'll contact the high school principals. And then we'll be in contact with the parents if the students do not participate.
And
Well,
if they
high school
don't, what's
principals kind
gonna
of out of the
happen?
picture. Are they not?
Yeah, but they don't.
Not really, the kids are still
That's
enrolled.
our problem.
Yeah, that's the
They're still
problem.
enrolled at their school.
And they're placed there by the team and the
Yes.
principal, so like I said, again, these kids,
The student assistance team is how they're placed.
these kids have caused so much disruption in the regular classroom and the day that we have to have something for them anyhow. And you talk about the Mountaineer Challenge Academy, I mentored 4 kids during those times. I wish I could have sent 8 and said that you could not come home, that you don't have the right to leave anytime you want to, but that's been announced with Mountaineer Challenge Academy. I think that ought to be changed, that they can't sign out anytime they want to come home. But at Presley Ridge, when I was a teacher counselor there, they got court ordered 365 where they couldn't get home, and they had to do some things. But like I said, these kids, I worry about the kids that want an education, that these kids have disrupted our education so much that it's not fair to have them being threatened with harm on buses in classrooms. And when you go to look at video cameras and teachers putting up with you see what happens in these disciplines that we have. And they're placed there for a reason. I was at the fair and had 2 that I witnessed that were alternative ed kids that were carrying a weapon, and got my nose involved with that. But I witnessed it, I knew what was happening, I felt I had to step up. But I'm telling you, and you know as a principal, when I welcome anybody to come in an alternative ed room, and if you got a video playing right there, and they're cussing you, and you say something back, now your job's in jeopardy of what you did wrong. in the classroom, but these teachers are tired, and I think we gotta hold some accountability, and that's where we looked at it and brought it to you. That's tough decisions for you all. But I'm recommending it to try it, and we'll come back with data. But when you've got Mrs. Mitchell that's over here spending her time having to go over there, when we've had some tough situations with these kids over here, and they just won't listen. And we've got a metal detector wand. We've got some stuff that's tough over there that, and again, I always said that would be my dream job, to have some alternative school that I could have 40 acres and take care of some kids. But again, we'd all have a lawsuit over time of something that you're accused of doing something that they accuse you of. But I think this is a good trial. I recommend that, but it's the pleasure of the board. We wanted to try it, and now it's on you guys.
I think as part of this process, it would benefit us to get the parents and the kids in the building, if possible, and say, these are your opportunities and these are your options. Sign up for one or don't, but now's your opportunity. And say, here, we're trying to get you the education you need. Have you seen what's here at the vocational school? Have you seen the programs we've got? We've got these alternatives to get you your diploma. This is what's here. Again, there comes a point in time when there's only so much you can do. Because the primary problem, and you've heard me talk about this on multiple occasions, is we have no teeth. That's our biggest problem. Is we don't have the authority to say to you, you better be here. Or, we can't, what are you gonna do? Throw me out?
There is
Throw me out.
There is no more.
Right. So because we have no teeth, we end up in situations where I substituted in a school, and I'm not going to mention the school. There were 14 boys and 3 girls, and this is why it's so good to do this for me at least. 4 kids in that room. It was the entire day, those 4 little boys, dealing with the issues that they had. There was no education that day. Part of it's because I was the sub, but the biggest part of it was because I spent all day with those 4 boys. Sit down. Please don't talk. You shouldn't have the chair over your head. Twice in that day. Chair over his head. I'm like, you got to put the chair down, kid. And 2 of them needed assistance, special ed, and we've got issues. I was told there were issues. 2 of them were just ornery and knew that there was nothing I could do. They just look at me like, what are you gonna do? You can't hit me. You can't force me around. You can't do anything. And that was the whole day. And I'm like, I don't know who when I left, I said to the principal, I don't know who the teachers in that classroom, but God bless them if they've dealt with that all year. It sucked the air out of the room completely. And the ones that wanted to learn were not getting what they're supposed to get. So at some point, you have to start making decisions, and you have to look at a 17-year-old and go, son, if you want to spend your life working for minimum wage, then that's up to you. But we're done. We've offered you every opportunity we've got. If you want to come back when you're 23, we'll help you then. But you got to make the decision at some point. And we don't have that conversation enough because parents get mad when you do, and then they scream at you for being very blunt and frank with them. And I want to help every child in every building all the time, but I also live in the unfortunate real world that we live in, and that means sometimes you got to look at kids and go, you're not doing your part. We don't know what else to do. And God love you guys that find another way to help, because.
Well, Mr. Bruce, I'm going to say one other thing, and then I'll be quiet, maybe. The other thing, and you mentioned, I think, you're exact, and there's a lot of truth to that statement. And when we look at alternative ed, one of the things we've talked about, what do you do with alternative kids that refuse to participate? What do you do with alternative kids that aren't coming to school? What do you do with alternative kids that when they do come, they act out and they're inappropriate? So, well, the alternative is, we can expel them. I mean, which means more expulsion hearings and so forth than coming here. But depending on, we, at one time, you're right, we had a stronger dependent on the court system balance. And that's not been happening. So, we've got to shift gears somehow, some way, try another method. Because what we're doing is not being successful. I'm not saying this will be, but I will say this, I don't know that it can be much worse.
I mean, I'm convinced that it'll be easier on everybody on the school board side, but I'm not convinced it's gonna be better for the kids. I just don't see, I mean, maybe I'm wrong though, but I mean, I do think, like Mark said, at a minimum, we need to not let it drift to the back burner, whatever we decide, and keep, and if this isn't the answer, then we need to try to find something that is.
Well, and no, I can't say that. In our, and I don't, just in general, it's 9 through 12, right? How many kids are we seating right now?
I just text, Miss Ayla, and, Rosemary mentioned the end of the year reviews. I don't know how many we ended the year with on the roll, but I know after those reviews, she said that 9 would start out in the program.
Yes, at the end of the year, we had, at the end of the year, we had 25 students enrolled in home education at the high school level. We sent 16 of those back to their home schools.
So 16 went back.
And we have 9 that currently are enrolled in
That
the alternative program.
that'll start in this program.
And with those 16, we gave a strong understanding of, you know, this is a chance for you to go back and do what's expected, follow, you know.
Do we feel comfortable with those 16? Now, is there a contract with these kids that they know they have to do A, B, C, D?
There's a contract with the students and the parents.
So we
And
feel
the
like
school.
16 of them fulfilled that contract?
They did what they had to do to meet the requirements to return back to school.
Okay.
But I thought there were only 6 or 7 here at Ag, right?
Well, they are, that's what we're saying, they don't come, but they had, like, not on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But they had gotten credits, and they had gotten, the 9 that we decided to keep back, and we did it different this time, which I think was so much better. In the past, on the committee, we've met with like, community leaders and that kind of thing, who come in, and they don't know the kids at all, but we
Yeah.
discuss how, you know, the progress has been or not been. This time, Mandy had it set up to where we had the high school principal on the phone with us, or in person with us. We also had the parent and the student either in person or on the phone. So
Okay.
we talked like, it was more like a conference.
For
with the
each
student as
individual
opposed
student.
to-
Oh, that's
And
good.
that seemed to be, you know, the parents appreciated that. The 9 that they weren't sent back had not gotten any credits at all this entire year. They had not come, we say they're inconsistent, they're very inconsistent. These had missed, some of them 30, 40, 50. One kid missed, I think, 60 days.
Well, some of them were probably missing that before they came to alternative.
And
I
I'm
mean,
sure some of them were. I think the biggest issue with the students that we have right now, like I said, some of them are even fourth quarter. But my staff will tell you, what we have seen here is the alternative school today is not what the alternative school was 10 years ago. You know, we have a lot of, you know, the truancy and that kind of stuff, but I mean, right now, that we're over here in our alternative school, I have a kid who murdered somebody at Bluefield back in the fall. I have a student just left this year who had shot a kid's eye out. I mean, I've got students with criminal records who are sent off and then sent back and then sent off and then sent back. I mean, that's more common to what we have in alternative now than what we used to have.
So let me ask this, if we took 4 core teachers and put them in that room, is it your perception it would make a significant difference in the outcomes?
I think it would offer the students better instruction. I don't know that it would make the kids want to be a part of it anymore. Because these are kids who, and I've spent days down there with them. Because we can't get a sub. So if my teachers are out, I go down and cover, or Ms. Farmer goes down and covers. And it's the same thing almost every day. You've got the kids who are in there and they want out and they regret what they've done to get them to this point, and they work hard to get out. And then we got the ones that, you know, won't do anything but sleep because they were out on the street all night. And, you know, parents saying, I don't know what to do with them, I can't do anything with them here. We had a student this past year that told us how he flipped the drugs all night long, you know, that he sold, and then came to school. We're dealing with those kind of things that in the past it was more of the kid that liked to fight all the time, you know, and you could get them away from the general population and it helped. Or the kid who was truant, and when we had that program when Omar Abelhausen was there, we had the probation officer that was staying on top of things. We did see a lot of change, you know, it was pretty good. But as time goes on, it seems like the type of kids that we're getting an alternative, the principals are having to make harder choices in who they're gonna recommend for alternative, because they've got kids who are doing so much greater or more harmful things than what we used to have, so it's, I think if we had, I do think if you had teachers in there that were certified in, you know, each of the 4 core areas, that would help as far as the delivery of instruction. But again, these are kids that are not gonna come to school for that, because they're not gonna come to school until they go back to court and the judge says again, you're gonna go back or you're gonna be sent off, or, you know, that kind of thing.
Well, and as far as teachers certified in the content areas, you know, one of the things we have to understand as well is that, yes, the certification helps. The reason the certification helps is because that teacher has a repertoire of skills that they can use to deliver that content instruction. If you're talking about a teacher who's gonna stand and deliver old-fashioned instruction, no, 4 content teachers would not make a bit of difference. But if they have the content knowledge and they have the ability to use up-to-date instructional design and incorporate videos, incorporate activities, incorporate hands-on activities for kids, then yes, that is gonna make a difference. And that's, I think, one of the things we can achieve with this program by having those certified people that are working with these students, which is part of that idea, again, I'll go back to the Wednesdays when they have the one-on-one opportunities that we don't currently have.
If we could use those Wednesdays to counsel, to provide career preparation, understanding, if we could do those things, then that makes it a little more, the outcomes might be better.
What's the vision for those Wednesdays? Would they come to public school, ride the bus to VOTAC?
Once, maybe twice a month, but a lot of it will be, again, through teams. Ashley, you probably have more knowledge of that than I do, so. The Wednesday times.
I don't think her vision is to do it through teams. I think her vision is to do it in person with some career counseling, with the high school counselors, yes, with the social workers, with the high school counselors to rotate them.
So yes, so busing them in.
Yes, to work
Okay.
on,
Answer
you
your
know,
question.
any type of college and career counseling or job training that they may be interested in.
Because when I had spoken about it, we said at least once a month, but you're thinking she's gonna do that every Wednesday?
No, not every Wednesday.
Okay,
Once or
but,
twice a
okay,
month.
that's what I thought, okay.
So
But
what
at
are they gonna
least
get?
once a month.
Do it once a month, they get 3 Wednesdays off?
No, there'll be other
No.
activities with.
It's tutoring time, it's extra help, it's anything, it's parent conferences between the teacher or guardian conferences. It's time for IEP meetings, 504s, anything of that nature. The Wednesdays have worked really well with the virtual program. It really provides a time that the students know they can log in the same as any other class time, any day, and they can get that extra help. They're not with the rest of the group, they're not with the other 100 kids, and they can ask those questions.
Perhaps it's time for our tennis director to go ask the judges in the county to sit down, probation office, sit down, have a conversation about our issues and what can the legal system do to help us. Can't hurt to have the conversation. I mean, if they can say there's only so much we can do, we've got to worry about the murderers and the worst first.
And in fairness to the judges, I'm gonna say this, because I've had conversations here and there a little bit. I know the judges are doing truancy court in the evenings, I mean, at least once a week, if not twice a week. So they're still having truancy court.
I guess what the comment needs to be made to them is you need to order them to do things and not say, well, just go to school and from the get-go, from day one.
I think I've started issuing some fines. You know, I mean, there's a situation I know where, we don't have placement opportunities because our facilities are all full. But maybe if they start getting in their pockets, it might be helpful.
Unless it's changed. I was talking to David Kersey back when the vapes and all the other stuff started to happen. And Bill Lightfoot and Doug Miller, even the short time he's been there, they're writing city tickets. But I know when I served on the city board and used to go to city court, the judge can sentence them or fine them, but you don't have to pay before you leave. You got 6 months.
Right.
And if you don't pay, what do? They suspend your driver's license. I got a speeding ticket in Wythe County. I had to go to court. I couldn't leave the courthouse before I paid everything. And that's that's the state. That's not us, so maybe our legislators.
Virginia can't do that. That's unconstitutional.
Well, they did it to me.
They can't make you pay for you.
And I will say this, and just to kind of, I actually had a parent that called me one day just raising Cain because their child had gotten caught a second time with a vape. And they had appeared before the city judge, and she had not paid the previous fine, and now she was getting her license revoked, and it was my fault.
Of course it is. It's the wrong address.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that they ought to send some of the kids to community service, take pictures of it. Can't do that either. But there's no accountability, there's no consequence to their actions. And we can't, like Greg said, we don't have any teeth.
We have no teeth.
None. So maybe we get our legislators in and say, guys, you know.
We've asked them for teeth for years.
You're doing all this stuff for the charters and the hopes and everything else. There still is public schools, and here's the issues we're dealing with.
Exactly. Well, and the things that they're doing is exacerbating what we're dealing with. They're trying to back on that.
Could I request
They
that,
can kick them out of those schools.
maybe we as a board get a look at the contract too, and we sign these kids in, or when they go into this program, take a look at that, would that be possible too?
Individual.
No, not individual.
Just
Just
general
a
contract.
blank
The
contract.
thing
with
that I'm
information.
interested in is what goals, what levels do you need to achieve to get back in regular
On your way
education? Number one. And number two, I hear you, I understand what you're saying, but there's a big difference. Believe me, I've had a short patience sometimes because, like Greg was talking about, there's kids that are so disruptive to the learning process that it's a detriment to other kids. And to me, I'm old school like Mr. Brown here, we've had this discussion, is then when you infringe on other people's rights, that should be the end of your rights. Not figuratively, but sometimes a correction, hopefully for some kids, they'll come around. So I don't know what are we currently doing as far as the review period? How long are they in alternative before they can get back?
We do scheduled reviews twice a year.
So
They're on the
semesters?
school calendar when it's put out for twice a year. But now, Mandy will call meetings if we've got a situation where a kid midway through a semester has really shown improvement, or the other way around. And, we'll have a meeting and bring everybody in. So we can do that. But as far as what's planned, it's twice a year.
I guess
At the end of each semester.
where I was going with these two things is if we've got that plan in place, or that contract that they sign, I think that definitely, every time we meet, that contract needs to come back out and say you've achieved A, B, C, D, or you've not achieved D. You haven't even attempted A. Do you want to get back in school or not? Have that conversation. I used to have this quote, Tom's heard me say it, kids need a light at the tunnel, but it doesn't need to be a locomotive. So, that's where I'm going with that. So I'd really like to.
Anything else from anybody else? There's a motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Carries 4 in favor and none opposed. I guess we're gonna try it out and see how it goes.
Can we throw a caveat or something?
I think we did.
Well, I know.
I think that's pretty clear.
This tells us what's going to be, what the proposal is. But at the end of the day, we need to see, yeah, what's going on. Here's what we're gonna do. You thought it was one Wednesday a month. Actually,
Well, a minimum.
a minimum. You know, on those days, the folks that I've talked to about the alternative, these kids are troubled anyway. And how do you do counseling on a computer, you know, on a Teams meeting? I mean, these kids, somebody needs to talk to them. I mean, try to get to know them a
See,
little bit.
and I think it's fair to the system to say that these kids have been talked to. We don't just throw them in this program and say, good luck and goodbye. We've got good administrators at our four high schools. We got good counselors and we got good teachers. I don't, you don't just end up in the alternative program just on a whim. There's a process, and you don't get there without it being pretty significant. And I think we communicate a lot with kids, much more than we get credit for, I believe. I think we talk to a lot of kids, and some kids, I mean, we've all been around, some of them are just hard-headed, and there's one that, and he'll know who I'm talking about, but I'm not gonna say his name, got to the second semester of his senior year and dropped out. At 25 years of age, he got his diploma. It's the happiest day of his life. And I've caught him out a few times because he still lives in the area, and he says it every time. Don't say it, Mr. Prudish. I know what you're gonna say every time. And he wasn't a bad kid, he's just hard-headed. He was done, he didn't want to do it anymore. And so he walked away, and he understands it now. He knows he made a mistake. But he wasn't a criminal, he's just
Hard-headed.
that's probably the best word to use with him. He's hard-headed.
I understand that line.
He just wouldn't listen. And he had, Mr. Browning, how many people spoke to that kid? A dozen?
Multiple times.
Multiple times. Just, you need one class. Just take this one class. Oh, I'm done.
But Mr.
I'm
Prudish,
I'm tired of
you know what? Something somewhere sunk in.
He kept having to work.
It may have took 8 years, but something somewhere sunk in.
And he did. And again, the benefit to him was he wasn't a bad kid. He just, for whatever reason, didn't want to do it anymore. And he learned the hard way when you go out in the world and people go, no diploma? I can pay you minimum wage, and, this is a really crappy job, but you don't have to do it. So I think the solution to what you're talking about is that at the end of the first grading period, that we get a report back.
Yes,
That the board be given
Not wait till the end of the year.
just tell us what's going on with the kids. How many are in the program? How are they succeeding?
How many are
Are they
showing
showing up? How are the Wednesday meetings going? What are we offering? What are we talking about? It just gives us
Great idea.
some data and information so we can see what's going on as the year goes through, and talk about tweaks if we need to, because this is one where we can be a little fluid and we can fix things if we need to.
Well, not only that, but if we see where we're failing, when you see where you're failing, when you say tweaks, we may look at ways to go outside of the system for some help.
Sure. There may be alternatives, absolutely.
Well, when I was talking about counselors, I didn't mean our counselors as we know them in the high school setting. I'm talking about the mental and the well-being and the wellness, and get to know these kids and see maybe the problem, maybe they're just acting out because things suck at home.
Well, and if I misspoke, I apologize. That is not the plan to do that on Teams. But I know that at one point, we did have Southern Highlands coming in to do counseling. And that was an option to come in and work with mental health professionals, not just our school counselors on academics and so forth.
Okay. Board Amendment number 369 is the purchase IXL Learning 1-year renewal license. This is kindergarten through 12th grade. Licenses for K-5 will be paid through Title I and 612 through ESSER ARP funds. Title I funds would be $78,850. 612 would be $72,350. Superintendent recommends approval of a subscription for IXL renewal for K-12 for $151,200 with a renewal period of July 1, 23 to June 30, 24. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a motion and a second? Questions, comments, or discussion?
So feedback from principals and teachers has been predominantly positive on the program?
It was, we surveyed out just to make sure that it was worth the expense, and it's used all grade levels, and one thing that parents like about this is something that children can use at home for basic skills practice in ELA and math, and it's something that teachers can also use for assignments and in-class instruction, but it was widely used. And we did negotiate this down because we didn't need professional development. No one felt like they had that need, and a couple of other ways that we reduced the price by about 25%. And it's federal funds paying for it.
Okay. There's any other questions, comments, or discussion? Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. Board Amendment number 370 is renewal of college contracts for placement of students for clinical experiences fiscal year '24. This is a new way of doing this, and I
that
really like
better.
it.
Me too.
We're gonna do one approval for 11 colleges or
having every other-
universities instead of doing every one of them.
Yeah.
But what this is this is for all student teaching placements pending in Mercer County schools, receipt of the candidate's background check and the college naming a site supervisor. So we're gonna sign contracts with all these organizations. I'm not gonna mention them all, they're in the board memo, but there are 11. All of our local ones and then some that aren't so local. Superintendent recommends approval. Is there a motion for approval? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion?
So will we still have to approve the individual people? Because a lot of times we get them where it has
Later,
the
yes.
name.
Yeah, we'll bring this.
But this is just a contract for all of them. Okay.
Correct, Jen?
Yeah, and we have some stragglers who didn't get their stuff back to us on time, so you will have some more coming your way.
That's all right. Anything else? Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. Board Amendment number 371 is conversation about school media litigation, and Mr. Campbell.
President Coolidge, what Rusty Webb, Charles Webb, the attorney out of Charleston that brought us the vape lawsuit, this is out there floating around in some of the counties that they had passed that. I got an email regarding it, and probably the best page is, I think the second, the one that says social media criteria sheet. Talks about all the issues with social media. There was a lawsuit out in another state that, in Seattle, actually in Seattle, Washington, that public schools, so they jumped on the bandwagon with this lawsuit. And I think a lot of counties are jumping on to get special, mostly funding through this litigation. But I think some of the requirements that were similar to what we collected for the debate, that look at all the platforms of injuries that happen. You look on the bottom right-hand side, there's, all the issues with social media, all the different things that cause problems in the school system is what they're looking at. So,
The biggest problem is their failure to monitor the stuff that should not be there.
TikTok
The
and all
things
these
that
other companies.
they're allowing to be spread on a platform and using algorithms to direct it at kids. It's not an accident that they're getting that. It's not an accident that they're getting that information and it's being spread to all the kids of that age in that demographic. So it's not like this is a negligent claim. This is intentional on their part. And the only way, I always say this to people, there's a reason why airbags are in your car, and it's not because General Motors thought they were great ideas. It's because people kept getting hurt, and there was a solution that they knew existed, and they didn't want to do it. So they kept getting sued, and they finally said, okay, we'll take care of this. One of the benefits of all of us ambulance chasers out there is that we do make things safer, and we do fix problems the hard way, which, if you got a big company that's worth billions of dollars, the only way you're ever going to get their attention is to take their money from them. And so this is one of the ways to do that. I'm all for it because the more I read about the way they use the algorithms to get kids, the madder I get. And that's why my 8-year-old grandson's only allowed to go on child's YouTube and look at sharks and whales and dinosaurs, even though he'd rather go to regular YouTube. So, well, I mean, it's on here, it's on the agenda. It's your recommendation that we participate in this litigation. The superintendent recommends that we participate in this litigation. Is there any other questions or thoughts? It's not gonna cost us anything. Is that a motion?
So moved.
So there's a motion and a second to participate in this litigation and direct the superintendent to contact with and do the things necessary to participate. Any further discussion? Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. Board Amendment number 372 is the payment of invoices for June. These have been written and are being held pending consideration by the school board. The checks will be issued after approval. Superintendent recommends approval. Is there a motion for approval?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sure, I'm just asking for my own, when I ask lots of questions. My question is, with the P card, a lot of things on here that we can pay with credit with that P card.
So Julian Smith looks at every invoice that comes through that's not a utility or child nutrition.
Yeah.
And she looks at those invoices to see if they can be paid by P card. And if they can be paid by P card, she contacts them to pay by P card. We also have someone who pays utilities and pays optical. She does that. Child nutrition does as well. And actually, child nutrition is a big portion of our rebate too, because all of our board and food is in the contract, the bid that we did, that they have to require it. So I will say with Julian that Julian contacts these companies, and unless there's a fee, if there's a fee to charge, if the fee is 3% and we're only getting a 2% rebate, she does not put it on the card. But I feel confident saying that she has maximized what she can do.
Could you say that last statement again, about the percent? Say that again?
So.
I'm slow.
Some companies charge a fee.
Right.
So they will accept our P card, but they charge a processing fee.
Right.
Because they are charged a
They're
fee.
paid a fee, right?
So it depends upon how much that fee is. So Julian had calculated, because she thought there was actually gonna be a presentation and she might be questioned tonight. So, I did.
That's a good trick.
Meeting's not over yet.
So her calculation is we get back we have earned 2.02%. So it's a tiered structure, so you get more the more you use. So, new vendors, she tries to contact them. Jason Learning, she contacted them.
What is Zones LLC?
That is a state contract that we purchase a lot of IT supplies and equipment from. A lot of these ViewSonic, the big monitors, that's one of the bigger things,
And you
but
can't use it for that.
I would love to use that. They charge a fee.
That's more than what we would get back.
It's usually 3 to 5% that the companies charge. So, I would love to get, and every year I call and I ask, do you take our credit card yet? And they will, but they charge.
Well, credit cards through the bank, correct?
Why are they charging
then
a
the
fee
bank's
to
making-
receive money?
It's because they
Because
have
that's
to
what
turn
they're
around and pay a
charged.
fee to the credit card company for processing their payment.
The big
Where if
winner
you write
of
them a
this is
check, they
banks.
don't have to pay a fee.
We don't pay a fee on our end?
No.
Because it's the P card, it's through the treasurer's
Yeah.
office.
The downside to us is that it leaves our bank account a little bit quicker, but we're not earning enough to offset the rebate by any means.
Okay.
Like the seller has to pay the fee. Like, do you take credit cards at your office?
Yeah.
So you have to pay a fee. Every time you take, so if somebody gives you $100 on a credit card, you only get $97, where if they give you a check, you get all 100.
Right.
Assuming their check's good.
Right.
So that's why they don't want, to take, that's the advantage of taking a credit card, it's, you get the money, but
Right.
you don't have to wait on the check.
It's
But-
true.
So if there's not, they don't have competition, they don't have an incentive to take the card. But if they do, then they might do it to get your business.
it is, and we do put that in bids as one of our criteria for analyzing, the bid is, do you take that? And child nutrition in particular, that's a big one. We calculate that in the price, is whether they'll, because we get that money back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna show my ignorance. So if things are paid on the P card, we get P card invoices, correct? So we'd still see them, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, you still see it. It's, they do it on a separate check run, so you see a separate register, just like this, that lists all of the.
That's what I'm
Yep.
saying, we still see
You
them.
absolutely will still see all of it.
Just like using a debit card on your bank account.
Yes, yes.
Sting won't take it when we pay our PEI premium.
No, but she does pay like the DEP, you pay a lot of state agencies with the P card.
It's probably a no-win though, isn't it?
Okay, so the place that we can benefit from the P card is by getting it to our principals and spreading it out more into the people that are paying things
Yes,
below the central office level.
yes.
We're
Right.
maxing out what we.
Right, grants, I mean, she does do a lot of, she does do some of that, but it's very time consuming for somebody to go buy something, and then they set up an online account, and then she has to log in and put her P card information in there, and, it's not really secure, it's not intended to be that way. But, Dr. Adkins has been working with some of his schools on some of the title money, and, Mr. Belcher has purchased it, and he actually said, this compared to last year when he did this, is so much more efficient and easier and accurate because he can use the P card for it.
Well, we need to have it on the agenda.
So
next
what's the
time so we can
status
talk
of getting
about
that
it.
out further dispersed, let's have a more P card?
If you all, support it,
Get it on the next
we will
agenda.
make it happen.
I mean, I haven't heard
Where do you
anything
want
to
P
not
cards to
support
go?
it, but I don't, I mean, it'd be worth a discussion, but
In the past, it was not encouraged.
yes, somewhere.
So if you,
But if you support it and you think it's beneficial, I think you should bring it to us and let's talk about it.
okay.
I know this is all beside
I'll-
this, but
I'll-
where's the
Once
checks and
everybody's done
balances on
asking,
a P
I'll talk
card
to
though?
you. Okay.
It's the same thing. It's, you still have to issue a purchase order, you still have to
Right.
get the receipt.
Right,
What you do is you get a statement every month that you reconcile those invoices, receipts, purchase orders, you attach it to all of that and pay the bill one time versus in the past, you might go buy 5 things, 5 different POs and issue 5 checks. Well, here you're issuing one check to the bank and you still have all that same documentation.
but, I'm dense.
You still have to have a purchase order, it's just the
Yeah,
check
but if
signed.
you're handing somebody a card, a piece, believe me, I've handed my wife a card before, and when I got the bill, it wasn't, you understand what I'm saying?
It is. You didn't have the receipts. Well,
Well, I know, but the business doesn't know there's a purchase order, does it?
no, but the holder, the cards are in your name, or in our
That's
personal
what's-
name.
Right, so the
And if I use it incorrectly, it's a
Mark
felony.
Godfrey
Yeah.
is online.
So if you get in trouble, if you do something wrong, you're in trouble.
It's a felony. If,
For me or for the coach I give it to?
you cannot give your card to a coach.
Oh, gotcha.
You will not give your card to a coach. That is you have to sign an agreement that you are not gonna let someone else
You
use your
give the card to the coach, you are on the,
Yes.
Okay, so how does that
Right.
help, the principal, when we were talking about athletics, sending athletic teams? That's what I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm not gonna give,
Well, I was thinking like food purchases that a lot of times they have to take a check to
so
go.
you can do it ahead of time?
You can do it ahead of
I
time.
like that.
Now, we can roll it out to coaches. Some of, Harrison County rolled it out to their maintenance department. They gave them, instead of having, I know, I'm not there yet either, but they're maintenance guys. But like right now, I will tell you, our maintenance guys know where we have POs, and Tom will admit this, they'll go get things, and they won't have a purchase order for it.
Oh, yeah.
And they also, like he mentioned, the teachers, we could do faculty senate money to the teachers, and that would be a big savings. You could do declining balance cards, so that you give
Yeah,
them.
they only have X amount to spend.
Yes,
yeah.
they have $300
And maybe for coaches, that would be appropriate.
Yeah,
more so than
there are a
nutrition.
lot of options. that-
Well, in listening to the conversation, and I had a sidebar with the superintendent, I don't know that this really is the province of the board. I think this is more of the province of the superintendent and the administration in handling this. I mean, we don't typically get involved at this level with finance.
Okay.
In the past, we just authorized certain ones and we never brought up to them before.
If the board would rather authorize it, that's fine with me, I don't care, but you know, that idea of,
My understanding was that the board did not like the thought of credit cards, and maybe I misunderstood.
Well, that's never been discussed since I've been.
I was gonna say,
Okay.
I don't think we've ever actually had
No, I
that
don't, it
conversation.
could have been prior to my time, but that's never been.
I don't recall.
I think
Okay.
the knowledge that they gained from here, I think has been huge, that, with the auditors
Okay.
support and all that, I think is a part of it.
I'm all for, let's get to the 21st century, let's go.
What,
We're still like getting in 20th, I feel like some of the time,
Yep.
so.
Another question, would the board need a P card to go for trips when they go to, like, the Marriott or whatever for the school board association? Would that be, I mean, there's
Usually
minor.
Kimberly books it ahead of time.
She books it
though.
and then it's a balance,
Yeah.
it's a bill sent to the.
The only thing we get
Sometimes
reimbursed
it's
for
a
is
nightmare
mileage
for them
typically.
too, you know what I mean? That sometimes it's not there.
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely can roll it out. They're bright orange cards, and, you know, the issue is you're responsible for reconciling your own receipts, bringing back your receipts and getting them.
Well, I think if we go that route, there needs to be a meeting of those who are giving them, and they need to be told, you misuse this, you're going to jail.
There
Yeah,
is.
and maybe have a.
There is mandatory training.
Yeah, not give them to everybody on day one.
You're going to
Same
jail.
one.
Yeah.
You can stage your rollout, you can,
Yeah, well, I mean,
Absolutely.
just for your sake too,
Yeah,
just to
and
manage.
I think the principals are a first tier. Let's
Yeah.
try, that's my recommendation. We try it with the principals, and then we see how it goes.
Oh,
But
okay.
and it
Derek's
says
actually
tax
said-
Is that
exempt
what
on
you
the
don't
card
think
too,
Todd
which
should?
helps.
Everybody gets one
Yeah,
but
but
Todd,
how
right?
often
That's
does
a
the
joke.
principal go out and actually pay for something? You know, I mean,
Well-
my experience at Bluefield High School, they just give me a check and then I go get what I need after the purchase order has been approved and all that.
That is true, but there are a lot of times, the only place that they buy is if a purchase order is accepted, or if they can get a total in advance. That you can buy things online, you can set up online accounts
Oh,
and
that's good.
pre-order things, and, have things shipped directly to the schools.
You do whichever you're more
Yes.
comfortable with. You wanna,
Yeah, we'll just look at it with,
Okay. We
treasurer,
have
we'll
a board
figure it out.
policy on P cards, so we'll review it and make sure that it's still applicable, and
okay.
thank you.
We kinda went off sideways there, but that's
Got a
all
lot
right.
of-
It's all right, it's all right. It was relevant to what we were talking about. So on the payment of invoices, board member number 372, we've got a motion on the floor that's been seconded. Any further discussion? And on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. Board amendment number 373 is the purchase of subscription to Travel Tracker transportation software. I am not gonna read all this. What I'm gonna say is the superintendent is recommending an approval of a 1-year agreement with Transact Inc., which is a sole source, so we don't have to have bids, for the implementation of Travel Tracker routing and Travel Tracker trip software, the purpose of which helps us manage our bus routing better in many ways. The total cost is $129,042 if my math is correct. It's broken down in an annual cost of $77,052, a one-time purchase of 96 tablets for $33,990, and a first-year expense of $111,042 for Transact, as well as an $18,000 one-time expense to purchase mounts that will be required. And so if my math is correct, that's $129,042.
Since budget, I didn't see where I put that in, or what budget that comes out of. Brent, do you?
We didn't really discuss that, that's a good point.
Okay.
That was TBD.
Which budgets?
Yeah.
Doesn't say.
Actually, we did talk that if we have additional ESSER funds available, that we think this would be justified, through that, because it does, again, promote social, distancing, et cetera, but we haven't gotten that far to see where we are for ESSER. But if not, we can use levy funds for this as well.
So, is there a motion for approval?
As our, okay,
So
Let's
moved.
get it on the floor first. Is there a second?
second,
All right, now, have at it.
as our transportation director given his input on this program?
Yes, and he's been very involved in the discussions as well. And so a couple of the key benefits, we did want to purchase the tablets and their industrial holders. So apparently, I learned a little bit about this, like on the 18-wheelers and things, truck and trailers, they use these same kind of mounts, so they're very durable. Company sold like 30,000 in recent months.
to big rigs and things. So, I mean, there are a mount that will be mounted here where that, trip is sent to that tablet that's assigned to that bus. So what that means is a substitute coming in to run the bus, maybe the bus driver knows the route great, but a substitute coming in has that right in front of them, turn by turn, that route. And also, if they're assigned say if they take a special trip to Charleston or something, they're not familiar with the area, that special trip is also sent to that tablet. So they've got turn-by-turn directions to that trip wherever they're taking. Whereas now, because they cannot get on their cell phone and use it for navigation, they've got to rely on somebody else, an assistant coach or whatever, to navigate while they're on that road.
Yes, I've been doing that many
Does
times.
it-
Yes.
Do I understand this correctly, that this could allow us to more efficiently set up our bus routes?
It does. It allows us to, it pulls from Weebus and identifies where children live. And then it makes the most fluid routes for us to pick them up.
Also for subs that don't know where they're going. I have said so many
And so
sub drivers.
But that allows us to change, to adjust our routes annually as we, go into each school year. The other thing it does is for parents that move into the area, if I'm new, there's a site, and Brent, if we are full board, and there's a site that I can go into, type in my address, it tells me where the bus stop is for my home, and what time the bus picks up.
That's nice.
So, and the other thing in the future, we didn't wanna, we've got a lot of things going on, so we didn't wanna muddy the waters. But this also, in that same vein, Mr. Brown was talking about, this allows basically a scan on, scan off of the student. If we wanna, it's no further fees to us, we can just turn it on. But we gotta vet that out, we don't wanna go there yet. But it would allow, if we wanted to, the student to scan on the bus, so you know how many's on the bus, how many's off the bus, exactly where they got on, where they got off. So there's tracking of, and trending of those students and accountability.
That's good safety
for those
measure.
students
I like
anytime
that.
they're on that bus. Additionally, then that allows for more efficient runs of the route. So you consistently see a route that's very low in the number of students, then you can adjust accordingly. So
Or if they see, if you scan in and there's nobody at a certain stop, they wouldn't have to stop, right?
Exactly, exactly. So that was something that is appealing, but we wanna make sure we get the basis.
We'll
from
ease into
first,
it.
and then we can expand out, but yeah.
And I know I asked about our director of transportation, but I didn't really hear an answer.
Yes, yes.
He said he's been very
Did he
involved.
discuss it with his staff to let them know? He may think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but what if he gets pushback? We don't have enough
He
drivers
made the
now.
comment that he would take care of that.
Okay.
That's what he said to me.
So is this GPS, or is it built into the tablet? Once it's all loaded in, it doesn't matter whether you have access to satellite or not?
Exactly. It is both. So it's cell data, so these tablets are cell enabled.
Okay.
And so that's how they communicate back to the software, but it's also got storage on the tablet to go offline.
Okay.
So lose signal.
That's
And they
important
will.
here, right?
Yeah, and they will, but then when they come back online, that's where they let it upload.
What map service are they using for their maps?
They, I don't know. It is, and Russell got involved, it will use the same maps that, you may be more familiar with it than I am, but there's some government type, it's the maps that Russell had worked with, he said.
Those are Sam's maps.
Sam's, yes, those Sam's maps. But it allows you to import those, and then you basically make tweaks to those existing boundary lines for districts, and then you can move them accordingly.
Yeah, we would preload each school district down. This may be, this is out there in right field, so to speak. The issues where we do not have enough subs. That's exactly.
Yes, you can.
All
It
right.
does this immediately. It will allow you to reroute.
Monday,
That's
Friday,
one of the
always better.
closest.
Oh,
say-
if
could
it-
say- could
if-
say
9 o'clock.
Bus 5, you add these 4 stops. Bus 7, you add these 3 stops. Bus
Yes.
8, you add these 4
All
stops.
right, let's take a
Yes.
vote then. Seriously, that would solve a
He
lot of issues.
just called the question. All right, I haven't had that happen in a long time. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That carries 4 in favor and none opposed.
But then it, so.
No buts.
No, I'm adding, this is. Yeah, put the icing on so we're also looking at those call-outs, so this has some functionality where we like to, the ability to call the students specifically if bus 594 is not running today. Then we can target the riders of bus 594, not the school.
Oh, that would be nice.
Then what's Amy gonna do?
Everybody hates me.
They do, everybody complains, we don't have to get calls about the bus.
You need to ride bus 6 when it comes by. You need to ride bus 7 when it comes by.
Well, and I love that idea, and I hope, I've really wanted to solve this issue. That's the biggest complaint, from the phone calls to my kids not in school that I've had on the board. And if this helps that, then it's a solution, and that's great. The only thing I do know, well, not the only thing I know, but the cell phone service, I'm one of those. I don't know, you've got a little service up there at the farm, don't you?
If you stand on one.
Well, I have to go outside, but that's the one thing that, would be a problem, I can see is.
And they do support AT&T and Verizon, we can
Right.
mix and match, but it also has an offline mode, so
It'll download.
So it kind of, you said that it kind of banks information, and when it hits a tower, it could probably,
Right.
okay.
And another piece of it, obviously, and common sense tells us this, it's a whole lot easier to cover in-town urban, or we'll call urban routes, than it is rural routes. So, of course, and you can still don't consolidate buses, but where I was using like 3 buses, as an example, it'd be more of what might happen in town, whereas out of rural areas, it's gonna depend on 1 or 2 buses.
That's a good point then. If our bus, wouldn't that information be available if someone calls out though, as far as condensing routes? What if at the driver's home or wherever the bus is stored, that information was loaded if they don't have cell service? That's what I was, thinking about. If they have Wi-Fi, would Wi-Fi be able to upload the information that they need, or do you know?
if that tablet could hit any network that if it had the password, then yes, it could go on Wi-Fi. It's talking back to a website, not to anything else, so it's just trying to get out on the internet. Any way it can get out on the internet, it would go out.
So you could help that bus driver work to set it up.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. We could put him, if we could get on their home Wi-Fi, they have home Wi-Fi out to the place where they park the garage, then, yeah.
Good.
The other thing it would also do is the first time it did cell signal, if they drove down the road and did cell signal, it would update its map.
Well, the only issue that I see, I love the idea, is the timing of those bus stops is going to change. So almost a lot of those kids on those routes would have an updated time. The bus isn't going to be here at 7:05. Today, you're going to have to wait till 7:10.
But they've also made the suggestion, as I believe we're on a call, where we make some test runs this summer and kind of log that as well, and it basically just sits there and records those stops.
So it's learning software.
We talked to Rose
AI.
about that.
That's what you want. Okay, it's here.
Did we talk about the trips? So that was the other big one we mentioned, so this is, it's got built-in functionality to the bidding of the trips, extra big trips, extracurricular trips. So it's that built-in functionality, to get the drivers paid, and not only let them bid on the jobs, but also get them paid for the
Well.
trips.
It records the time that they leave and when they get back, the mileage, and then it's automatically routed. So actually, back it up. It's got a form that the principal or AD will fill out to get the route approved. So it'll go to the whomever for approval, assistant superintendent, we set up that routing, it's approved, then it goes
20th century.
That's what I said, and we're getting caught up.
We're skipping. So
I like
just
it.
know that we might be coming for a little help this summer. You know, we might need some IT help.
On the other hand, the
something.
buses might start attacking people. So, I mean, you know, that's the thing about AI, you got that bad side to it.
I also think one more advantage will be, you know, we kind of always buy the larger buses. We might not need larger buses from some of these routes. I think it will give us a lot of information, maybe we maximize
I think
and
that's,
make it more
I
efficient.
think that's true. The last time we bought a bunch of 77 passenger buses, I was
Yes.
scratching my head a little bit.
Yes, and especially in some of
Get
those
on
places
trips.
that's hard to turn around.
So, board member 374 is a superintendent's evaluation. Because of the, I talked to Mr. Thomas before the meeting, because of the absence of Paul, and we feel like all board members need to be present. We're gonna put that on the next board meeting, but you do have a, goal-setting
Did we vote on
evaluation
that?
instrument.
What were we just talking about? Did you do the vote on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
4-0.
I'm sorry, we're going
Remember,
so
he-
many different
he called the
places.
question.
Oh, yes, that's right, okay. I
And
didn't
so
know if we
if
had
you
to
could,
vote.
if you could do that and get it to me, you don't need to put your name on it, just get it to me and I'll collate everything. And then we can meet at the next board meeting and we can have the conversation about the superintendent's evaluation. We've gotta have it done by June 30th, so we need to get that done. I'll
Okay.
also be sending you the email, for the board's self-evaluation. And you'll get an email for it that, from me.
Bring hard copies for next meeting, and get all the directions in there.
I gotta do it all. I just send the email out to them, they complete the thing, they send it, they do something, I get it back, and I did it last year, I was capable enough, so.
August or September.
August something. So that leaves board member number 375, which is the personnel agenda. Is there a motion for approval? Oh, I'm sorry, there's
One
a change.
comment, on the page of, the truck driver general maintenance position being rescinded and re-advertised to include truck driver general maintenance. That still affect warehouse clerk, or does it clerk too? Warehouse clerk?
Warehouse clerk.
Okay.
What page is that?
It's not numbered, is it?
It's on the addendum, it's the very last page.
Yeah.
It's on the last page, and then
Extra
add
page at the
computer
end.
operator.
Oh, I
See where they
Uh,
did that?
And, I had that request to add computer operator, it's not typed on there, if you make that amendment on there, present for each member's board, if you're okay with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
With that amendment, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion? Any need to go in executive session? There appearing to be none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor, none opposed. We have no other action items on the agenda, but we've got some information to talk about, so we'll start with wherever the superintendent's pleasure is.
You wanna go 23, 22, and, Dr. Atkins, you wanna start on anything that you wanna update the board? We've got several things that I threw in the packet to them too from me.
I can, we can start, all of this does relate to student achievement, with the robotics policy, and you should have a copy of that. We're proposing, it's a document right now, but we're proposing that this be, generated as a board policy. Derek Belcher and Kelly Stanley, Ashley Smith, they did most of the work on this because they did most of the work coordinating that, program. They met with me several times, and I would play devil's advocate on some things. And the point of this is to set the parameters for what the blended robotics league is, and distinguish the difference between it and a club, and how it's much similar to an activity than in line with athletic programs. And we spent a lot of time on that. And if there's specific questions, I've already warned Mr. Belcher, he's behind me somewhere, that he may, would defer those to him. But we hope with your all's approval there to move forward to making this a board policy to allow for a one-time pay. We had funded this through special payroll hourly. It was just very cumbersome, and we're really working toward efficiency and doing this in a way that is fair and equitable to the coaches, and a couple of different positions there to help support this in a better way.
And Dr. Atkins, and I would very quickly add, this also falls in line with our other co-curricular programs where we pay stipends to band directors, choir directors for performances and other after-school activities based on the programs they're coordinating work anyway.
And you compared it to some different the amount of time other ones put in to come up with that
We
single
estimated
pay.
time, and we looked at time of other after-school programs and tried to be, you know, kind of
Balance
balanced.
it.
Yeah, we tried to be fair there. Mr. Browning and I met on that part with his knowledge on the different sports. We talked to different principals as well that have those middle school programs is what we compared it to make sure that it wasn't, that was fair to all, you know, to the athletic programs as well, and the coaches that do that work. Any questions on
23,
the
20,
robotics?
yeah, any other, I'm sorry.
Anybody have any questions on robotics?
So one of the big changes is that now the teams are gonna fundraise to go like to the world championship or whatever, as opposed to us covering it, 'cause we can't sustain that, I guess,
Right.
long term, right?
That is correct. We are going to budget federal funds though to support robotics programs, but they are going to take opportunities to generate money, basically doing things they're already doing. We're not going to charge fees. That's, I think, something that's discouraged by Bex through the robotics competitions, that you charge a gate fee.
Mhm.
Because that was, my first mind was, you know, the
Charge
way
an
you do
entry
athletics
fee or-
programs, and we
yeah.
have a gym full of people, but through concessions, you know, through selling of shirts, hats, different types of
Well,
things.
and
Every
like
time I've
other-
gone, I say, why do we have concessions here? Every
Right,
time.
right. There's opportunities.
Well, unlike other youth activities, you know, I mean, they've got a little bit of baseball, a little baseball does not allow you to sell tickets, but you can certainly take donations. You can pass a hat during the activity.
And if they know what it's earmarked for, then
And
they're
that's
likely to
conversation
give.
too, at least our Saturday big events have a basket and say, would you like
The,
that?
the only distinction I would note or make note of is when we send athletic teams off to state tournaments and stuff, we don't make them fundraise to go. I would note that.
But we don't pay for it, that's a school board.
Yeah, the
athletic
state pays
budget
for it.
pays for it.
Well, I get that, but it's paid for.
Right.
They're not raising money to
But
do
they're
it.
able to sell, right, well, they do fundraise.
Yeah,
Not-
they
not
fundraise.
really
Yeah, they
for this,
fundraise.
But they
Always
fundraise
do.
for other things. They do a general fundraiser.
Yep.
And teams are raising money all the time, selling things and.
And I get that, but if Montcalm High School doesn't have the money to send their basketball team to the state tournament, they're still gonna get hotel rooms, and they're still gonna be at that state tournament. If the county has to pay for it, cause I'm guessing we're not gonna say to them, sorry, you can't go, you couldn't raise any money. And I'm not saying we should pay for it, I'm just saying,
Well, SSAC allows so much money for so many rooms, but it doesn't cover everything.
no, that's not,
I mean, every year we've gone to states, they've covered like 15 rooms, 16
just,
rooms.
just a
But still,
comment.
they cover
pay for
some
the
of
rest.
it, though, you know?
And they've gotten grants, Montcalm in particular got a couple grants, I know, well, all the schools got grants, I know Rosemary helped them with grants, they were able to get several $1,000s that way. It is expensive, but they are good about getting grants too, and I think that will grow as well, as this popularity grows.
Maybe some sponsorships too.
Mhm. And they did get donations to help cover travel expenses for the kids too.
It all kind of all over together, it is, let's just roll it.
I'm ready whenever.
Go ahead,
No.
just
So-
run through it, the individual things.
The individual things on the update discussion regarding, so you got CSI, so thank you, Miss Jenny, for being out here, but she put a packet together for the community and schools, is what you were requesting on that, I believe, members of the board, right? So there's some information if you want to, look at that, or anything she can answer, but as you know, the budget wasn't, as much as what we have, in our system, so what we've gotta look at is what we're gonna continue with, and, maybe, I'll just go right on the record real quick that we may look at different options of how we're gonna fund that in the future. You know, are we gonna have our English teachers, math teachers that are in those positions now, get them maybe back in the classroom and do something differently? We may look at that, that's been a discussion, to do some things, unique.
So-
Go ahead, Jenny.
I
I'm
will
sorry.
say that we, for this coming year, the budget for this year, we had some rollover from this past year that we were able to carry over, so we're good to go for this year, including salaries, benefits. And that's giving each site coordinator a little bit of travel money, because they do have some required trainings they have to go to, and giving them each a little bit of supply money. The supply money won't be as much this year, but it's not intended to be as much this year. It's supposed to rely on those community resources and bring those resources in.
So, as with all things related to humans, the biggest expense is the humans,
Yes.
the people doing it. So it looks like 2/3 of what we've got here is paying people to do the work, right?
And we've been talking to some surrounding counties and the way they have hired those employees and some things that
given the number of students impacted, I don't know how we can let this just go to the wayside. There's too many kids that are getting benefit from this to say, well,
I have also data, there's a really good data management system that the State Department requires with this grant. So it gets very detailed into what they're doing and the supports that they're providing to the students. And the coordinators doing an amazing job in the schools. And a lot of them this year were working on that chronic absenteeism, and that's gonna be a big focus again for next year. We attended that training in Morgantown about that, and they included all of CIS in that training, and they're looking at getting them involved more in that area too.
I think one of the tricks with this program is figuring out how to integrate it into the broader system that we already have and parsing out some of this stuff to people that are already employed and doing jobs for us and figuring out, well, you know, this is not really time consuming. So if you could do this as part of your duties currently and then we get into the whole thing with adding duties to people and all the legal stuff. But it's such a good program that you hate to, but it's like everything. They get you started, throw money at you, and then say, good luck, you're on your own. Comments from other board members, questions, thoughts, ideas?
Thank you, Jenny, for coming in today too for that. Anything else for Jenny on community and schools?
So we're good through next year. It'll be the following year that we've got hard decisions to make.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The second bullet is Jewel litigation. I know Mr. Bailey asked a few questions about Jewel and the money and that some of the counties are out there. We, as you remember the press releases, Mercer County was a part of that. Charles Webb does not have a contract, so I'm in the process of trying to talk to him about our contract with us on that Jewel litigation. It looks like some of the counties are getting about $10,000. So I'm working on with him, trying to get a hold of him today again. I talked to him last week, and he was looking at some stuff. So right there.
What's that have to do with what the county's gonna receive?
Well, if we don't have a contract, that's what his question, that we signed up for that, but he says he cannot find our contract with the Jewel litigation. So whether it's $10,000, we don't know the amount, and they're trying to get that together. Now, the county of Mercer County Commission did a separate, and that right there, I don't have an answer yet through talking with the commissioners. I did talk to Commissioner, no, the other.
Archer, Buckner.
Buckner. I've talked to, and he's looking at that and was positive to say, they're waiting to see what amount they get, and we don't know that, but that's what Charles Webb, that was over all the litigation, was sharing with me the other day.
Well, I would think Mr. Puckett would be all in on the idea that it
Yeah,
goes to.
and he was he was all over the place. I think he was traveling this last week, so I'll reach out to him
I
also.
forgot about the Jules and the contract with this Webb fella.
Yeah.
I just know that it was
The
published that Mercer County,
The county commission
County
sued.
Commission is
They
getting.
filed
is-
by
is
themselves.
getting money to come back into the county.
Yeah.
And then it listed what all the requirements of that litigation funding was gonna be. And it's like, you better get there, I thought, you better get there with your both hands out.
From the commission.
From them, because they're gonna give, they've got it, they can't do enough with all of it.
No.
Because the number I saw was significant. This coming from the state through the state's lawsuit.
Yeah. And I'll reach out to the
Right,
others.
they're distributing out, this is the opioid.
Yes,
This is the opioid
the
money.
opioid money.
Okay. But the Jewel, I wanted to bring that, I mentioned that to President Purdich the other day. Solar Futures, if you're ready to move on, and I think what the question was, is what did you think of that presentation and how to move forward, if you want us to bring that to you as agenda item in the near future, or you will need more information? And if Mr. Atkins can answer anything with that, or.
I don't know, Tom, I mean, he's the man, he's gonna, if it's something that he thinks can help, provide the power that's necessary, I thought it was a great presentation, but at the end of the day, you've got to work with it. And is it something?
I feel we're talking, the main concern, and I think Mr. Radford expressed this pretty well, is the warranties on those. And they have 100% assured me in writing and verbally. I've talked to Tech to America, which we just approved $1.5 million to do 2 roofs for. They said that as long as Secure Solar Futures does any communication beforehand with them, that it won't void any of the warranties that they do. And, you know, to me, long-term, it not only does it look like we're trying to do more to help, not just the environment, but anything to offset costs of operating schools.
Yeah.
Anything that we can do differently to do well and to reach outside the box. I think the pros grossly outweigh the cons of this, especially with no upfront cost and some grant money. And I think, in some of you, I kind of saw a look in your eyes, it's almost sounds too good to be true, a little bit of it, and I do worry a little bit about that. But I think, you know, you don't know anything if you try, and especially if we're moving forward with technology in schools. Solar is going to continue to grow. How antiquated will our equipment be in 5 years? I don't know. But you know, I think at this point, it's not bad.
They're planning, after we had that session, I went back and did some reading, and they're benefiting from the Inflation Reduction Act and all the money that's being thrown at the alternative sources of power. And so they're getting money from the government to do it, and then they're getting money from us every month to use it, and it works out for them. They wouldn't do it otherwise. They're going to make money. The thing that struck me was looking at the numbers. We're not going to gain a fortune, but we still have a net gain. And if we get the money from, it wasn't a promise, but if the intimated suggestion that there'll be money coming from the Intuit people, then it's actually a good bit of money. I mean, it's, you know, it would pay for some things that we could use. It certainly would pay for paving in a year, and if you can do that 2 or 3 years, that saves us money for other things. And, you know, the auditor's comment about $1 million here and $1 million there, you know, I'm thinking 100,000 here and 100,000 there. Even though we have a pretty substantial budget, that's still a lot of money, and it can do a lot of things. So,
After I've thought about it, and the two things I came up with is, I think we kind of addressed that. One was, I've been reading on it, and there seems to be a substantial cost when those things are no longer serviceable about disposal. And it seems to be really high cost associated with getting get rid of them if you have to. And I know he answered the one question I had about, you know, we could buy them, or I think
they remove them.
Or they remove them. So that kind of alleviated that. The only other thing is I wasn't real. Roofs are unutilized space primarily, but the solar or field or whatever at Pikeview and Pikeview Middle, I wasn't so keen on that. If it's truly wasted space, which I know that in some ways it is, but our plan was for it not to be. Even when you've got a middle school and a high school out there that need practice space. So I hope that maybe we could make something happen to get some practice space out there somewhere.
Well, you and I both know, there's gonna be no drilling down in that, right?
No, it's solid sandstone.
And they already said, you know, if we ventured into that and saw that we weren't gonna be able to, again, you and I both know, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. So, I mean, for them to, what they would do probably in that term is they would just say, okay, we're not doing Pikeview, let's go somewhere else.
Right. It'd be phase 2 or phase 3, right?
And, you know, I've already talked to them about Timberwood and the newer stores and anything that in the future.
Right.
Be part of the new deal.
Well, I don't guess we can actually vote on doing it this week, but it certainly sounds like it needs to be on the next agenda for action item.
And then,
Because I will say this, I know people get fraud about coal and all that stuff, and, you know, when we got rid of our last 2 coal-fired schools, there weren't riots in the street, and we're also creating the electricity that we are using in our buildings with coal, And this will supplant some of that, but I don't think it's at the level that it's actually gonna.
Again, the big sale is taxpayer dollars being saved in the long run.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The next, so I'll bring to you the
Go
next
right ahead.
agenda.
Yeah, please.
And the next bullet was the West Virginia Department of Ed target review. So you have the 3 schools of Mercer, Bluewell, and Straley. You have those reports I placed in your agenda to look at. Bill, anything else? I mean, you guys are meeting, you just got these reports. I just want to share those with you and have some suggestions, some things that they saw when they went through those things. So
Hit us with the highlights.
Okay, let's make this quick, right? We have met with all 4 schools and the State Department, and it's kind of not going to be as much with the State Department involved as I thought it would be. They're mainly only going to come down in November in person and then again in teams in the spring. But they're working with us through teams, probably monthly. And we've already submitted, most of the schools have submitted their improvement plan. I know tomorrow I meet with the State Department to go over Straley's to see if they approve it or not. And you all got the report, so I really don't need to go over all that, but all of them basically had the same highlights. Every school was welcoming, had a good environment, had good relations with parents, good community involvement. And then the things varied, you know, that needed improvement. But I can give you some rough draft raw scores already, and actually correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. This does not include the special ed 1% students scores, the DLM scores, and it doesn't include kids that have not had continuous enrollment being excluded from the scores. So this, in other words, we're hoping this, the score I tell you should even go up higher.
Yeah, we're public, we're
In fact,
streaming.
so Margo, okay. All right, then I won't tell you what we're roughly doing. But everything looks really good, is what I can say.
I still want to see in writing somewhere in a policy that says board members are part of the embargo. I need to see that.
I talked to Mr. Rudy about that, and he said it's the Public Meetings Act. Now, outside of public meeting, if you.
So we can be informed if we just show up,
Yes,
you can
sir.
show us.
Yes, sir.
All right, good deal. All right,
But
I
I'm
thought
real
that
happy
might be
with
the
what
case.
we've seen, you know, just in this year, and we hope to still make continuous progress. That's our intentions.
The thing we're getting measured, we want to keep that secret.
Well, until they release it, but yeah, they just keep it. It wouldn't be a secret if we said it here.
Well, I understand that, but
They want to crunch the numbers 35 times before
Well,
they
so I
get
don't
it.
understand why they release it and then have to wait and re-release it. They just do it.
So we'll all be floating around at some point and asking you what those numbers look
We'll
like.
be sitting here for a
Stop
while
by.
after.
I signed that thing, so it's my license.
There you go, there you go.
Yes, sir. Anything else, anything else, Lynn? I'm sorry.
But it's good news is what you're
I
saying.
think so. I'm anticipating that.
Good.
And I really like the improvement plans that they've come up with, so.
It looked like, just kind of looking at them, that we were, I mean, one that struck me was there was one IEP that was not delivered. And I'm like,
And that, on that
Okay,
one
yeah, I'll-
that was off by 5 minutes, which was a minute each day, that the kid didn't get enough of.
yeah,
Teacher cut her schedule was by 1 minute short.
when they're
Which is
picking
1
that kind of
minute, 1
stuff,
minute,
you're
that
doing
counts.
pretty good.
Yeah, and then the other school where it said they, didn't get the total minutes, they didn't understand what the schedule, the school didn't have it written clearly, that was, especially in math. They said transition, and they didn't realize that that was the math time, so, again, that was not correct.
And Dr. Atkins went over the robotic policy.
Right.
And then the iReady as a new assessment. We did pilot that, so you have some information that I put in your packet right off the top, and maybe we'll bring that back to you about improving iReady and looking at our assessment there after some time. So anything else, Dr. Atkins, on that?
and that would be a replacement to STAR. And I think I'd said before, you know, you're a good sales pitch from a company because they're trying to sell your product. But we spent this year actually piloting it in 4 of our schools. I think the information that Mr. Trimmer provided you had the actual recommendations from those principals, and we had an advisory committee and met with teacher representatives and the principals, and they had a very, very good experience with it. We do have data, you know, that I could share with you, showing that we did have with on the mastery of content, and about half the cost of that would be by replacing STAR, and I think that we can cover all of it with federal funds, and then with our literacy money, maybe a very small amount to the county, but I think we would be close on being able to cover that. And it is, we do on K-3 now have the required screener as part of the Third Grade Success Act, and it does meet those criteria, including the dyslexia screener.
Then the Title I carryover decodables, you have information in your packet that I put right in my superintendent's information you can look over, and that's maybe something to come back to you to discuss and vote. Anything else on that?
Well, I just wanted to mention on that, because it will be a substantial expenditure, we had talked in the budget meeting about a very large sum of Title I carryover money, and it's use or lose money. And I think that's a result of COVID times, and it was difficult to spend money on things that we usually spend money on. And so we've talked with principals and teachers, and a tremendous need that we've had for a very, very long time was for our primary classrooms, and this aligns again with the Third Grade Success Act, is actual decodable reader sets for children to learn to read. Provided you a copy there of research that would explain that and what that means to be decodable, and that's the very learning to read. That's a very functional piece. Had a very, very positive response from teachers, and all schools will be Title I. All elementary schools will be Title I next year, so it would be every K-1 and 2 classroom in the county, and third grade would have an intervention piece there. Leslie's working on the financial part of it, because again, it's a large sum, but this is use or lose money, and able to provide something that could be used for years, regardless of the reading series. You know, it would align with the science of reading and supporting children learning to read. And then she's working on the financial part because of the cost.
And I'll back up to say any administrative updates. Mr. Browning, anybody, if you just want to speak up instead of calling you all out, if anybody has anything, we'll just go down through the table. But anybody else have any updates? Dr. Vaughn?
I was gonna say I do, but I'll wait till the 20, whatever.
Well, go ahead. We've got a majority. Some people will be
Well,
absent.
just real quickly, I'm sorry for interrupting you. As far as staffing and people on recall, we have 2 bus drivers that are left on recall right at this moment, and probably about 7 aides, and that's it. Everybody else has been recalled, with the exception of maybe on the professional side, 2 or 3 teachers. And so I look forward to those being placed, hopefully, on the next board agenda. So, the other thing, the frontline onboarding and recruiting piece, that will go live July 1st. So there's another piece of us moving forward in the 21st century. And that's all I have for right now that I'll share with you.
Dr. Vaughn?
In relation to us discussing proximity of virtual programs tonight, I just wanted to let you all know we did have 65 students that ended on virtual for the year. Out of those 65 that ended the year, all of the high school students earned their credits. We had no failures on credits, so I was happy to see that. And no retentions for our K through 8. Kids that remain on virtual, and that's really a shout out to our facilitators, and just being on top of things with grades and who needed improvement plans. So
Explain the facilitators to the board if you don't mind.
our facilitators, we had 3 that were full-time all year. We were able to divide those out. There was 1 person who had high school, 1 who had middle school, and 1 who had elementary. The numbers just really worked that way this year. Who knows, it probably won't next year, but we were very fortunate for it to work in our favor that way. And those facilitators checked in weekly, just to update parents on grades and progress and platform. have put 3 on the agenda. That was the 27th, the last board agenda, so we've approved 3 facilitators as needed for next year.
Do they do, is that their full-time job or they also
No,
teach? That's what I
no,
thought. They do that as an
yeah, that's
adjunct thing?
extracurricular.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. The only other thing I have
Back
is
in the
we do
day.
have 31 students registered to start summer school tomorrow morning. We've had an in-person orientation, and we've had a teams orientation and a recorded orientation, so I think
How does that
everybody's had a
compare
chance
to our,
be
I know it's
orientated.
different, but how does that compare to our past, it's different because it was credit recovery, right? But how many do we have in typically in credit recovery?
Rosemary, the last time we did credit recovery this summer, we had about 21 kids, right?
Oh, okay, so it's more than that.
How many
That's
do we
good.
have, Summer? I'm sorry.
We have 31. We have 11 who need a math credit, 6 who need science, 6 for history, and 8 for ELA.
Okay.
And
No
Dr.
middle
Vaughn,
schoolers.
Dr. Vaughn, your largest amount of virtual schools at the time and during the COVID time was what, 3,000? I think, something like that.
Yeah, one
What was it?
time,
Was
when
it large?
things first started back, 2021 school year, we had 3,650 students.
Yeah, that was
650.
during the regular school year, though, right?
Yeah, this is interesting. Now we're down to 6. Thank you. Anybody else?
Can I just say that,
Yes, you may.
I have a correction to make. I did text my source and I was provided incorrect information. We are going to recoat, A and, was it G, Tom? A and G, and then this whole building is getting an actual new roof. So everything except the seminar center is included in that cost.
Okay.
That explains the price.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
it
right.
is, you're exactly right. And I did question it because it was so high, but, yeah. So,
Well, that's
and I
good.
just want to say, I'm bragging on Julian for all the phenomenal work she's done over the years. She has spearheaded this, but, the PEIA changes that we're making, we left, Dina Barnett there, has been there making all of these changes. So there's some significant changes being made to deduct that twice a month, to help employees, but also save expenses by not mailing paper copies and things like that. And in some ways, a lot of this, there's an initial cost, and that's this team that has done that, and I wanna, give them a shout out. They're not here, but I want you to know, we have some great employees who are willing to do whatever it takes to make these changes, and they've done a great job. We do have a good team.
Anybody else?
What, do we have very many people interested in the bus driver training? Has that started? No?
He told me the other day, I think, was it 6?
We have 6 that I'm aware of
That's
right now,
right.
but I do have some applications that Dave shared with me that are at the bus garage that we need to check reference checks and stuff. So there's a potential for 6 more, I believe.
Oh, that's good.
But that's if they're not willing.
Yeah. And that starts, when does that start? July 5th, okay.
One
Just
thing
curious.
I forgot to mention was the assessment data. I've got those charts and everything finished. Those can be forwarded to you guys anytime,
Okay.
outside of the company.
Anytime.
That would be a good solution.
Would it
You
be,
got our email.
Yeah.
would you forward them or just come see them? I would rather just them come see them instead of having a copy that way that gets me out of jeopardy. I think
That's fine with me. I don't want to put you in jeopardy. I had that conversation
What do you
before.
think?
Well, I mean,
That's
I
what
am licensed too, and I have said to people, I'm not doing that because I need my law license. So I get it. I get it. If you're more comfortable with that, that's fine. Anything else come for the board? Well, who's gonna
year.
move
think I'd
for
like to make a
adjournment?
motion.
I know.
I guess we can't
Since
adjourn,
Paul's
guys.
not here, we can't leave.
We'll just all go home.
Thank you all for.
There's a motion and a second. We're adjourned.